Welcome, one and all, to this, the 25th episode of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, a Warhammer 40,000 podcast made, produced, developed, delivered, and created by an assortment of people, but not least, the beautiful Joe. How are you this fine day, Joe? How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm suffering with the heat.
Ooh.
I would if I could. I'd spend most of my time just in my pants, just lying on the floor, panting like a dog.
So you're on heat?
Not on heat.
Oh.
But I'm at work, not right now, but when I go to work, I'm just there in my shorts, my t-shirt, and my flip-flops. Like, who's the man? The
man
from the film. Who's called the dude? What was he called?
Oh, what, the Big Lebowski?
Yeah, kind of like him now. That's my life now.
Doesn't he always wear like a dressing gown everywhere he goes though?
Yeah. I hope he takes it off in the summer.
He might well do, but then he lives in California, and in California it's always warm.
You're killing my analogy here, Dan.
I'm sorry, mate. But there you go. So you're basically like Jeff Bridges,
dying,
sweaty in a vest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I said with great assertion that the name of the guy who played that character is Jeff Bridges. I'm pretty sure I've got that wrong.
That is Jeff Bridges.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that is the joy of my assertion. Sometimes my random moments of authority pay off for me. But there you go. And someone who isn't in any way anything like Jeff Bridges, not to say that he's not potentially as cool, interesting, or dynamic, but ultimately, he's not a 69-year-old Los Angeles man who has made a career out of being a cult actor of sorts. We're joined, you'll be amazed, by the incredible Phil. Phil, where have you been, mate? What have you been doing?
I've been out having a life.
Oh my God, look at this, Joe. Not got time for us anymore.
It's almost to say as if us people, we don't have lives. Are you saying that we're lifeless dweebs?
Not at all. But is this why I've been relegated to second place now in the order of introductions?
It's not entirely because of that. Because what I wanted to do, you see, I didn't actually explain this to you before the start, but I wanted to build up people's expectations that you're not going to be here again, because that's what people have come to expect. You see,
fair enough.
By your actions, and I wanted to surprise them. It's like drum roll, please. Phil's here. So there you go.
I've just had a bit of an action-packed summer, which is because if anyone knows me, I'm normally spending it at home, not leaving the house. But somehow I've managed to do it a few times in a row whenever we're normally meant to be recording.
I mean, Phil, before I move on with the things and stuff that we're talking about, have you ever identified yourself or considered yourself to be similar to, in any way, Jeff Bridges?
Well, we both have beards, so there's that similar.
There we go. So in many ways, that also helps Joe's analogy, doesn't it? Joe, do you have long flowing locks like Jeff Bridges?
I wish I did, but I don't. It's all gone. I've shaved off the hair. I just look like a normal man now.
Normal man. Your superpowers are gone.
Are you not growing it back though?
Not in this heat. I will when it gets cooler. I just can't dedicate my life to just the beard, the all-consuming beard.
Why is that, Joe? You're not man enough for the beard.
Oh no, I'd like to think I'm fully man for the beard, and the problem is keeping it off my face. It grows so bloody quickly. It's just like a rhododendron bush, just constantly there. But
what's the quality of your chin like without a beard?
It's all right now. Now I'm losing the weight, it's getting more of a manly, like, chiseledness to it.
Joe, do you want to do a Weight Watchers segment per episode to track your progress?
Yeah,
you do. Come on, here we go. Joe, how much do you weigh right now?
All right, I don't know. I'm not in some scales.
Joe, go weigh yourself and come back. By the power of editing, we'll tell you how much.
I know exactly how much.
Of course you do, because you're in dieting mode. You weighed yourself 4 times this afternoon alone.
Yeah, I was at slightly different angles to reduce the amount of weight on the scales.
Oh God, I'm 1 pound more than I was this time yesterday.
So I'm 18 and a quarter stone now.
Jeez. I mean, some people hearing that would say that's still pretty fat.
Well, yeah. I was like 19 and a half stone.
Oh my god, you whale!
I was waiting for Peter to come and net me and drag me back to the nearest pool of water.
Peter? Oh, right, yes, of course, the animal people.
The animal people.
Oh,
but it's one of those things...
Geppetto. Didn't Geppetto go after whales? You know, Pinocchio's dad. There's whole whale sequences, and there where Pinocchio gets eaten by a whale.
Yeah, and then Geppetto has to go and save him. Back in terrifying Disney days.
I know.
I've had enough of being a blubbernaut, and I need to slim it down. And also the main issue is I play every Tuesday against the man known as Stephen Box of Vanguard.
Oh, Steve Box! Ooh.
And he is a personal trainer and was a professional bodybuilder, greased up oil man who posed on the stage. And he just sits there, stands there with his leg up in his tiny shorts and his vest.
Has a bollock ever slipped out of him?
No.
No. He keeps them well taped in.
Yeah. And I stand there every Tuesday and I look at him.
Look at his
yeah.
Stare
I'm
at
like,
them.
I had to sort my life out. He's living his best life, and I'm just here sweating.
He hypnotises you with his gentle thrusts.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And
does he flex when he's like, moving stuff around the table? Like when he picks something up to make a point, does he really kind of like at you?
If he is, this will probably kill me. But he does this thing
he
where
would kill you with all of us, to be honest with you. I mean, if Steve Box came to my front door, he could have his way with me with no issues whatsoever. Except, human decency and the law of the land. But where are they when you need them?
So when he's in deep thought, his left pectoral muscle twitches.
Because that's his heart. That's him. Oh, he's listening to his heart. What will the heart of the dice say to him?
I know. So I look at this.
I'm completely unqualified, by the way, to make this kind of candid comments about Steve Box. I hear most of the things about him through Joe and his regular gaming sessions, and he's a friend of mine on Facebook, so I assume I know him in real life when actually I don't. So I'm making a lot of bold assumptions here about how far I can take this stuff.
No, it's lovely, but as I said, he is like in the peak of human fitness and evolution at the moment. And I am just a sweaty mess on the other side.
Steve, you can understand if you're listening to this, right, why I do the whole, ooh, Steve Box thing. Listen to that. The peak, mate. I think you even yourself wouldn't say that, would you? You're striding for even greater perfection. You don't need people like Joe holding you back, making you feel like you've already peaked. You need to keep powering on, man. Keep going. Believe. I believe in you, buddy. That's all. Sorry, Joe, you were saying?
You made this weird now.
I haven't made it weird. You're the one who started talking about his pectoral muscles. Admittedly, I did mention his bollocks, but let's not get into that, I suppose. I mean, Phil, how do you feel about Joe's blossoming relationship with Steve Box?
Well, I feel like you're going to be replaced. And eventually you have Steve Box running the podcast, not you.
I mean, Steve Box already is a better known person in the community and is generally better liked than I am. I mean, I'm a more of a divisive individual. I think overall, Steve Box is probably a better choice for this than me.
I know, but he's probably too busy running his own podcast, so, he probably won't want to do this one too.
Well, exactly. On Vanguard Tactics. Check out Vanguard Tactics, everybody. Should we plug that now, Joe? Is that one of the things we're plugging now?
We might as well do. Yeah, exactly. He does YouTube videos, and...
He's just the all-round best kind of human you could ever hope to meet, right?
I know, right? Although I fear this is getting all a bit, like almost obsessive to the point now.
Sorry,
are you his stalker? Are you actually playing him on Tuesday nights, or do you sort of hang out his gaming studio and peer through the windows?
That's what he's doing. He's hiding in the bushes, outside his windows, peering through. Ooh, what did we pretend to play this week?
I actually have a one-to-one copy of whatever game he's playing at the same time. I might pretend, and I'm like, oh, what a great move! Oh, it's such fun.
It's like
It's scarily real.
It's like when I was a kid, I used to record episodes of Games Master as a young lad, where they used to play games on the telly, you know, and I used to just get a controller and pretend that I was playing along because I was so wanting to play the games. I was like, ooh, it's like I'm actually playing SNK's baseball. Well, there you go. That's an insight into my pathetic upbringing.
That sounds incredibly sad.
I know. And then my dad would come home and go, "Stop dreaming about those video games, you pathetic dweeb," and hit me across the head. But, you know.
That doesn't sound like your father at all.
No, well, you know, he's changed since he had the 2 strokes, mate. The second one has really has changed the man in quite a profound way. Much less violent.
I don't think it slowed him down at all. As a slight into Dan's father's, I think it's simple to say your father's body is a mess.
I mean, it's probably a bit rude. I mean, my dad doesn't. Let's not say it's a mess. If anything,
it's not as fully functioning as most other people, but it doesn't.
I mean, he's in better shape than you, Joe, for one. I mean, you know, he may only have one working arm, and is in constant pain because of his ongoing. I can't even remember what it's called. Basically, his brain keeps telling his arm to basically squeeze itself to death. It's horrible, really. I mean, the man is in excruciating pain.
We went over there one time,
yeah.
and he's making his own paving slabs out of concrete and developed this masterful series of levies and pulleys. And
to compensate for his one arm. He's an inspiration, Joe. I deeply love and respect my father, and I'd rather prefer it if you didn't call him a mess.
But I love your father. I think he's great.
Oh God, it's another one, Phil. He's loving my father now. Leave him alone. He can't defend himself. He's only got one arm.
I have this long list of inspirational men that I just need to be near and touch all the time.
Oh God. Shall we?
I think that's it for the intro.
Yeah, I'll do
On to the next segment.
Well, we need to say what we're doing. So on the top... Good God. Oh, God. Right, okay. So on the topic of inspirational men, we're actually joined... We should have probably made more of a song and dance out of this. We're joined this episode... God, Richie's getting me head again with weeks. We're joined this episode by Winters SEO. That's right. The man, the myth, the legend, Winters SEO. Phil will be playing him soon. Joe played him most recently. And he's on our podcast trying to cross-promote, isn't he? Cross-pollinate, get a bit more, relevance and audience, Once you've come on to the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, you've made it in Warhammer 40,000 realm, wouldn't you say?
If I'm totally honest, I kind of feel like we're more using him for his massive channel and his just general brilliance.
Joe, you're pointing out the obvious, but obviously, you're not supposed to acknowledge these things. I mean, fortunately for us, he's already recorded what he recorded. How did you think it went in the general sense? Would you say it was a good interview?
I think it was a great interview. He's one of the best.
Of the 2 that we've done. Oh no, because we had Adam on as well once, didn't we?
Will we include Tim in this situation?
Well, no, Tim's more of a recurring cast member, isn't he?
Yeah.
So we can't include Tim in this. But we will be including Tim in this later on, because Tim will be coming on to talk to us about his Warhammer 40,000 Grand Tournament Heat 2 army list, which will be some form of Eldari, I believe. So he's going to be talking to us about that. But yeah, I mean, how did you think that interview went, Joe? It was good.
Yeah, it was lovely. He's a lovely man.
Yeah, he's a lovely man.
I'm biased because I spent like 6 hours in a tiny room with him.
Well, of course. I mean, he is one of your inspirational men, after all. I mean, why would you not?
Yeah, that's what I do to all men that I appreciate and love. I just lock myself in a room with them until they love me.
Until they succumb to your ways.
Yeah.
Oh God. Phil, what's last? Oh yeah, we're going to talk about White Dwarf July issue, featuring lots of exciting content, but most notably the Blood Ravens. Did I say blood correctly? It sounded correct, but then didn't come out the way I wanted it to.
There's lots of people with the word blood, and there's lots of people with the word raven. So.
And death as well. God, death everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
And wing. Everything's got a wing. Oh, it's madness. But there you go. So that's the contents of the show. So we've got... well, first of all, we're probably going to talk about... You know what? Let's just start with Winters. I reckon that's the order we do this in. We start with Winters because most people will want to listen to that anyway, and then hopefully they'll stick around for the rest of it. So we'll talk to Winters. That's a great interview. As Joe said, probably the best one we've done out of the 3 that we've done. So, hopefully you enjoy that and it's insightful. So that's a good thing. Then we're going to talk about White Dwarf July issue. And then Tim is going to join us to talk about his Eldari Grand Tournament Heat 2 Army list because that's coming up soon. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything we ever needed to say and probably more that we never should have mentioned. Yeah. Well, with all that all said, everybody, let's move on now, if we can, to episode 25 of the Look Outside 40k podcast. We love and appreciate you all. Like and subscribe. Stick around. It's a great show. Boom.
Build routine 721 initiated.
Welcome back, everyone. And in this segment of the show, we're joined by the one and only Winters SEO. How you doing, Winters?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, pal. It has just occurred to me in the pronouncing or kind of announcement, I suppose, of your name that the SEO, what does that actually stand for?
That stands for Swindon Elite Ops. I'm based in Swindon, and it was the name of the gamer group that we were all a part of back in the day. And when I first launched the YouTube channel, nearly everyone who appeared on there were members of Swindon Elite Ops, and they all have different names. Phoenix SEO, Grey Knight SEO. Bet you can't tell what Grey Knight SEO plays with. Anyway, so when the YouTube channel was launched, Winters SEO, because it wasn't going to go anywhere, it wasn't going to be anything, it was just going to be just us and our gamer groups putting up some of our videos from the SEO group. So, And then I found out about half a year later, when it started getting a bit bigger, that SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and I wish I'd have picked another name now.
I was going to say, that was definitely my default thing, was I was, as a man who does marketing for a living, that was my initial default. I was like, hang on now, is that just some sort of clever search engine optimization, that search engine optimization is ultimately optimized and, has in some way attributed to your success?
Yeah, I wish I was that clever. But
well,
no.
Indeed. No, fair enough. And if it wasn't immediately obvious, as you could probably have heard, chuckling away in the background, we're also joined by the beautiful Joe.
Hello, I'm here.
And the intense and wonderful Phil. How are you, Phil?
I'm good, thank you.
There you go. Look at that. Compliments all round. So, in this segment of the podcast, we're going to basically talk to our man Winters about what he's up to, what he's doing, how's it going, as well as obviously what it was like to face off against the grand champion of Lookout Sir, known only as Joe. We're very keen to hear Winters' account of his time spent with Joe, how he found his man Musk and all the other bits and pieces, and then just some general chatter about things to come. I understand that Phil's going to be joining you very soon, Winters, for some gaming fun, much like Joe did.
Yeah, I think Phil's booked in for September with his Dev Corps of Krieg army, and I think Phil got in contact first, I think, and then Joe found out and then jumped ship. One of these can tell you the story behind that. Yeah, Phil coming down as well.
Yeah, I was the first to contact you, and you said you were fully booked and you weren't taking anyone else on, and then I waited a couple of months and then badgered you again. I think you said you had a dropout, so I filled his space.
So you jumped the queue. Well done.
I jumped the queue, and then Phil got in there, and then I'm booked again to come and play against you in, I think, November.
Okay, right, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I love that where it's not even sure.
I don't remember.
Or did I tell you that I'm coming in November? Or
No, if you are aware of this, then listen. I play once, twice a week, every week, all the time, and I meet random strangers off the internet.
Yeah.
So it's hard to keep track of everything. I do recall at the end of our game, though, that we did arrange for something else. I didn't know when it was, so that's November. Yeah, I tend to book up. The other thing about it is, without trying to sound too big-headed, they do get quite a few requests, and some of them are from a long, long way away. So I always try to say yes to those people that are coming from a long way away. But, for example, I'm booked up for this year. I don't have any free slots now for this year, and I'm refusing to taking any more slots for next year yet. So probably when he got in contact the last time, it was in a similar position where it reached my point where I can't take any more, because otherwise it starts getting crazy and people fall through the cracks then, and then I feel bad.
Yeah.
I mean, how was that in the initial instance, starting out in the wondrous world of YouTube, where all of a sudden you realised that you needed a certain flow of content to satisfy your fan base, and that you actually had to open up to the possibility of not just extending invitations to those of the Swindon gaming group, but actually giving out your home address to complete strangers over the internet in order to have them come play Small Toy Soldiers with you?
Yeah, it was a natural progression, really. At the start, it was just really the SEOs and me playing away for some time. But within 6 months, or maybe longer than 6 months, there was a few thousand subscribers, and I started getting requests from people here, there, and everywhere. And I said no, because back then, the joke had turned up to my new studio, which I call the studio. She calls it the Toy Soldier Room. We moved out about 3 years ago now into this place, and the YouTube thing's been going 5 years. But when I first started out, it was in my living room. And I would set up in the living room and banish her to the bedroom for 6 hours. And she'd have to stay up there watching Netflix or whatever upstairs. So it was quite an inconvenience. And she didn't want strangers off the internet coming round. And she's banished upstairs. And that's all fair enough, because it was a small 2-bed house then. But the requests grew and grew and grew. And I was saying no to people. And then a couple of people got in contact who were from Swindon, in Swindon. So the first occasion of me meeting up with a random person on the internet is, I went to Games Workshop, I agreed to play them, and I went to the local Games Workshop and filmed a game there. So I don't know which one it is now, but if you look back through the catalogue, there is one filmed in Games Workshop Swindon against someone that I'd first met, and he was a really great guy. And then after that, he was invited back, and we started. He became a secondary member of the SEOs and played more games, and that kind of opened the floodgates. Well, a trickle in the dam, and then she was more willing to let some people turn up. And at the beginning, it would have only been people that I'd been speaking to off and on the internet for a long period of time, either on Facebook or email or this, that, and the other. So you build up a rapport with people, so you kind of know. It becomes self-editing, right? The kind of people that you don't have the long-form conversations with, they faded away. But the ones that were incredibly persistent ended up coming round, and the ones that I really enjoyed talking to. And so by the time I moved to here, it was more. It was happening rather regularly. But here is easier to do here, easier to organise. She's got the whole run of the house. We're locked away in a hot, sweaty bedroom, stinking of man for many, many hours, and throwing dice and having a jolly good time.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah,
there's nothing finer than two fellas stinking of man together in a sweaty bedroom. I mean, that is the most beautiful experience we can share with one another, I believe.
She refuses to go to the Games Workshop, because of the smell. Because, sometimes if it's empty, if it's near empty and there's only a couple of people in there, and I've sent her in something because I'm filming or doing something, and then she will go in there. But there's been a few occasions where she's come back from town and said, I didn't go in. There was like 12 people in there. It was stinking. So,
it's intense, right? I mean, walking into a Games Workshop store when you're not one of the, initiated, it can, I imagine, be quite an intimidating thing, even though obviously there's the nerdy funk, but then you've also got the added... the added weirdness of, people looking at you, trying to work out what you're even there for. It's like when you're going into the local village pub, but you've never been in before. They always kind of, eyeball you quite intensely. So I can imagine it must be quite daunting in a way.
Yeah, and let's not be about the bush. There aren't very many girls in Games Workshop stores. They are rare and beautiful creatures. And so they tend to turn heads. And it can be a bit smelly, and it can be a bit uncomfortable for people. But I think in this day and age, we've got much better at it. And I think there's a lot more women playing 40k than ever was, particularly when I was a wee bairn. And I've certainly got a few subscribers and people who message me who are of the female variety. And that's only happened in the last couple of years as well. So as it's become more mainstream, as 8th edition has grown the hobby quite considerably, and as the Black Library have released more and more books, I think this hobby is becoming more available to the fair sex.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, mate. And I think, apologies if it appeared that I was trying to not address that kind of elephant in the room there, although I genuinely was, because I kind of, I never know where to stand on that kind of observation in the modern era. But yeah, no, you're totally right. And I think, but again, it's something that's improving greatly, and I think that's definitely an important attribute to the growth of the overall hobby, because, it definitely needs to celebrate and involve a much more diverse portfolio of people. Otherwise, it is, as you say, sweaty men playing games with each other in a strange, funky room, which is, not necessarily immediately the most appealing thing, until it becomes the finest time you can ever have. I have spent many a time in the presence of another man within a confined space on a sweaty day, playing games of small toy soldiers, and they've been amongst the finest experiences in my mortal existence. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
It is always an experience playing with you, especially in your garage, which is a little bit disturbing to be in.
It's becoming less disturbing because I've invested in the shed outside where most of the instruments of torture now reside. So, I too, Winters, just to give you a nice insight there, the current intent on my part is to try and convert my own garage space into something resembling a studio. I mean, what would you recommend to me as a man who's in the business of doing these sort of things? What kind of things should I definitely be looking out for or be aware of when trying to deck out my own, studio space?
Studio space. Light is the big thing that a lot of people don't do well. You need really bright lights, white walls for a start, because it doesn't matter how good the camera is. At the end of the day, this is a visual hobby, and you need to be able to see the dice clearly. You need to be able to see the models clearly. So start with some powerful and expensive lighting.
Understood.
And then if you're making battle reports and sticking them on the internet, then you need obviously fully painted armies, but also quite a collection of terrain, various terrain. So not every battle report looks the same. So you want at least one good ruin set, one good outside set like rubble and hills, and then one good set of something quite interesting. And that will give you the three original loadouts plus a mixture of matches of them, so you can really blend that scenery in together. So battle mats are also a must these days as well, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'm mostly using the glorious Realm of Battle boards at the moment, but definitely from production perspective, they make that beautiful clacky noise as you roll dice on them, and then you inevitably need to use a dice tray instead and add all those kind of elements to it, but then it adds like another focal point because you're kind of taking the camera away from looking at the models while you're rolling dice. Instead, you're looking at a tray which doesn't have really much else going on around it, unless, of course, you situate it amongst the action, I suppose. But I don't know, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's an interesting dilemma. But I take on board the points, and I think actually the terrain point, I own the pieces. Me and the guys need to actually go through the motions of painting it all. I keep asking, but they never want to do it. It's terrible.
It does cost. See, setting it up and getting going, it's gonna cost, and it's not just the hobby. The hobby at the moment costs because you need to buy the models and get the armies together, and everyone knows how expensive that is. But it costs in the sense of time. You need to spend lots and lots of hours making sure your armies are painted and that there's some variety in the army. And it also costs in dollar when it comes to the tables. I would recommend getting a couple of sets of pre-painted terrain, either from GameMat.eu or UrbanMats.com, or both of them, and getting a couple of battle mats from both of those suppliers as well. That'll be more expensive dollar-wise, but cheaper in time-wise. Then you can just throw the mats down on the table and put the pre-painted terrain on top. Then you're going to need dressing for that terrain. I go for aquarium gravel for all the rubbles and stones, but barrels, boxes, tank traps, things like that, craters, things like that as well, just to dress the table. You need a good table.
No, 100%. Could not agree more. I mean, I have bought a rather lovely new gaming table, which is probably a bit of an extravagance to say the very least, but I got the guys from Natural 20 are, I say they're sorting me out. I mean, they are at my expense. I don't want to give any kind of allusions to the fact that I'm sort of getting something for free here. I definitely am not doing that. But yeah, the guys, I think it's natural 20. That feels like the thing to say. So I've spent quite an excessive amount of money on one of those fancy, cool gaming table things, which is going to be quite cool. I'm really excited about that, and I've probably mentioned it one too many times during the course of this, podcast process. I've definitely mentioned it quite consistently over the last few weeks. But anyway, regardless, that's going to be arriving very, very soon. So I'm quite excited to see how that, elevates things and changes things. Bizarrely, I was looking more towards the idea of live streaming than doing much what you're doing in the kind of, produced and edited battle reports. But again, it's sort of the idea of that is kind of, again, removing a layer of complexity. Because I imagine, what do you use to edit all your battle reports together?
So most people use Adobe. There's an Adobe Pro type version. I think it's a $5 or a $10 a month. Most people use that. And that allows you to do flashy thumbnails, which are the images that appear before videos. And it allows you to, you'll have different audio bands as well as the visual band on there. And you can mix and match, and you can make the presentation look a lot more professional and make it look like something that might appear on TV or an advert or a trailer. There's more flexibility in that system. I, however, am not a tech priest. I am as technically minded as a spoon. So I just use, I think it's Windows Movie Maker, the free one.
Wow. That's amazing.
I use Windows Movie Maker. I get it on the phone, I transfer it to the laptop, and then I sit there with my earphones on and just cut the front bit off, cut the end bit off, and glue them together, and that's it.
That's amazing. Joe, you seem to have something to contribute to that bit there.
I'd say what blew my mind when I turned up, because I is that you actually just use your phone to do the recording on as well. Because when you turn up, a lot of people use very expensive flashy cameras and mics and stuff, but you just use a phone, and it just comes out with just as good quality.
I'm as technically minded as a spoon. I don't know. She bought me a camera. She bought me a camera about 3 years ago, and it could do lots of things, and it cost quite a few £100, and it had too many buttons on it. And I filmed 2 battle reports, and on both of them I made mistakes, either lost audio or it was zoomed in too much or other. And so just wasted my time and wasted the other. Well, we had a great game. It was nice, good fun, but someone's come all the way from 100 miles away or 200 miles away, and they don't get to see the finished product on the interwebs. So I put that down and just use it for holidays now. Well, she uses it, and just continue with my phone. There's a number of battle YouTubers out there. I won't name them, but there are a number of YouTubers out there that do just use their phones. The more professional ones, the Strike and Scorpions, the Tabletop Tactics of this world, the Mini Wargamers of this world, they all use proper cameras and use Adobe Pro or versions of that software. Most of the rest of us that I've met, because I've met quite a few YouTubers now and played with them as well, done loads of collaborations, just use their phones. And the picture quality on phones these days is incredible. You can stick the phone right up in front of a camera, right up in front of a miniature, or put all the way back. And the tracking as well, it doesn't go blurry. I have thought recently, though, confession time, I have thought recently about investing again in a proper camera. Because 4K is a thing now. And higher frames per second streaming, and the video quality is getting better and better and better. So I think at some point in the next year I might actually invest in something and actually practice with it quite a bit before I film my first battle report.
That'd be interesting.
Not smartphones that have 4K recording, or is that beyond the capability of what a phone could do?
Yeah, so this phone has got all sorts of gadgets on it as well. The thing is, if you turn on the 4K and if you turn on all the bits, then there's a couple of things that the phone does a lot of thinking for you, like auto-focusing, and it will not blur images when you track right to left, and it will do auto-stabilization and things like that. If you put auto-stabilization in on Windows Media, it doesn't work very well. And YouTube has that feature as well. When you upload videos, it says, do you want to auto-stabilize this? And you click yes, and it doesn't do it very well. The phone, the camera will do it best. And these features, when you've got it go up to extremely high resolution, automatically turn off on my particular phone, which is the highest or the latest Samsung. Most people use the latest iPhones or the latest Samsungs. So, yeah, you can do that. But then I think that's because we're so close up, we're only a few feet away from what we're doing, and the camera's moving around all the time. You need to have those features turned on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So why don't we talk about your glorious experience playing against Joe all those many months ago that went up on the interwebs not too long ago, I suppose. How would you describe Joe as a Warhammer 40,000 opponent? I mean, you don't necessarily need to rank him because I think that's not very fair to others. But I mean, how did you feel about the joys of playing Joe?
I think he was remarkably gentle.
It was a very fun game, and it started off, and I thought, oh, this is decided in the first turn, and then it slid very quickly in your favour, and then much like a seesaw, then slid the other way, and then just carried on going. But it was still a really good fun game, and we laboured from the beginning that it was a narrative game. It wasn't going to be anything competitive in any kind of way.
Yeah, we tried to build a scenario which made narrative sense to both of us and both of our armies. And you're right, it was fortunately, because you can never tell what the dice will do. But fortunately, it did go one way, then the other way, then the other way. So it was a good fun to play. And yeah, Joe, this is the first time I met him. And Joe was lovely. He's a very nice guy, very funny. I think we had a joke and a play all the way through. I think we were both taking the mick out of each other a little bit. And
that's not like you, Joe. A man of your social standing shouldn't be, taking the mickey out of an upstanding citizen like Winters here.
Well, it's all part of the show, It's all part of giving the fans what they want, kind of thing. Because you don't want. I went into it thinking you don't want to give a boring account of things, and like when it said to me, we try and have a banter, we try and have a laugh, try and keep it going, because you don't want dead air. There probably is nothing worse in the battle report than you just kind of stood there going, well, you say something.
Yeah. Oh, I do minimal direction at the very beginning to someone who turns up for the first time like Joe. So yeah, I think, as you said, I told you, just talk. If you want to interrupt me, if you want to say something, just say something. If you need to banter, just banter. I will banter with you. And because not only are you enjoying a game and enjoying playing 40k, but trying to have as much fun as possible. And the best battle reports I find, certainly when I watch them as well, the ones that I enjoy the most to watch are the ones where you can tell both people are having fun. So I'm trying to have as much fun as I can. I'm trying to encourage my opponent to have as much fun as they possibly can. I mean, no one wants to play Monopoly with a couple of other people and they're being really stroppy and trying to cheat and someone flips the board at the end of the game. That isn't a fun version of Monopoly. But if you play Monopoly and all three of you are slightly drunk and having a laugh, and and that's a good version of it. It's the same whatever game you're playing. You enjoy a game most of all when the people you're playing the game enjoy it as well. I'm just trying to have fun.
Yeah. Have you had any occasions? You don't have to name names. Do you have any occasions where you've had to really lead them in terms of talking? Have you do you get camera shy people turn up, even though they kind of know what they're selling themselves into?
Yeah, there's been some occasions. It's rare because most people who turn up know what they're letting themselves in for, because they've certainly seen a lot more of me than I have of them. But I can talk until the cows come home. So if someone's being quiet, I just won't shut up.
And when we talked to you, you said you prefer to do kind of narrative games over competitive rule sets.
I prefer to have. I like to have as much fun as I possibly can with my opponent with whatever list is up against. Now, sometimes having a match play competitive game can be an awful lot of fun, can be really good fun.
Yeah.
But more often than not, you're going to have, if you had to put a percentage down on it, what's the chances of you having a really, really fun game at a top level with a top level competitive person? Or what's the chances of you having a really fun game if you built a narrative and agreed on a setting beforehand? I think most of us would agree that you would more likely have fun with the narrative side of things than you would with the competitive side of things. That's not to say that either of them is better than the other, but it's just, yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I suppose with competitive events, like they can quite quickly turn into a whitewash, turn like 2, turn 3. And I suppose with a competitive game, a narrative game, you can kind of like ebb it out and create situations to make the game last longer for the viewers.
Yeah, I think primarily if someone comes here to play competitively, then they're primarily here they want to win. They really want to win. If someone turns up and we're doing 2,000 point lists and there's a story involved, then yeah, they want to win, but they also want to see if the captain storms the breach, or see if they can hold the line against this, or see if the story becomes as important as the winning part.
Yeah, I see the value in that for sure. I think the thing is, I mean, speaking personally as someone who plays a lot of competitive gaming, I think I've almost gone too far into the abyss, as it were. I was saying this with Joe just the other day. I think the problem, and it is interesting because it's something that, I mean, so me and the guys at the moment, so 5 of us, I believe 5, unless I'm missing someone. So Richie, Tim, Phil, Joe, me, Sean, 6 of us. 6 of us, the illustrious Sean, can't forget about him. We're all doing a 1,000-point Space Marine challenge for December. So the idea is that we each build a 1,000-point Space Marine army that's entirely new, that we've never done before, has to feature a special character, and we're all being incentivized to build the army, around 1,000 points of Space Marines. Simple logic, and I'm quite excited for that prospect because it's hopefully, again, a step back in the right direction towards more kind of fun gaming. Because it's fair to say, I think since the advent of 8th edition, one of the things that was weirdest for me was that I was always very competent within the rule set of what was 7th and below. Because obviously from like 3rd edition to 7th edition, it more or less stayed the same. And I always kind of knew how you were competitive, but then I also knew how not to be, and I tried to sort of, tread the path. I used to do more narrative events, do all those sort of things, and I just super loved it. But then when 8th edition came out, it really annoyed me at first, because I didn't get it quite as well as I got 7th, because I didn't have 20 years of experience behind this particular system. So I kind of dived in more than I ever have before into trying to get competitive at it, because I kind of felt like, I don't know, like a sort of, like a Ghost Limb thing, or like a Phantom Main. Like I was like, oh, I don't get it anymore, and I sort of worked really hard to sort of understand the system and get my head around all the weird subtle nuances, but I've never dialed it down since. I've sort of allowed myself to become this hardcore gamer within 40k 8th edition, and I really, really, really would like to stop. I need to stop myself, man. It's terrible. It's going all wrong.
So the game was new, and you wanted to be good at the game. It's new. It's a new edition. Right, I can be good at this. Let's do this. I know what you mean. I've had that feedback from various people as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing, though, and I think early doors as well. I mean, you got to understand, Winters, during the whole course of 7th edition or 6th edition, me and Joe would play. I'd rock up with any old nonsense, and I'd be like, oh, it does this thing, and it'd be fun, but it wasn't like super ridiculous competitive. But I had his number every time. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
There were a few occasions when I would win. A few.
Indeed.
Not loads. We kept a tally, but it was always very lopsided.
But then 8th edition came along, and Joe was infinitely better than I was at the start. I felt emasculated. It just didn't work.
I picked it up really quickly, and I was like running like really obscure lists. But back then, what no one was really like caring about. Like I was running Renegade Knights and Poxwalkers and Mauler Fiends and stuff. which very quick in the indexes just seemed ridiculously overpowered. I did really well, but then as the codexes started to creep in, I just kind of dropped them because they weren't doing as well. Although that's kind of seemed to have reversed now, and they're back on top again. But as my early 8th edition career boomed and Dan declined, and then mine started to go down, and Dan just seems to have continued on the up and up and up. And I just kind of gave up trying to be competitive.
Well, yeah, but you're getting back into it, right? You're revisiting. It's coming back around. I mean, would you, Winters, ever consider spending more time on sharpening your competitive edge?
I don't have any time. I used to play back in 4th edition. We did a lot of tournaments, the SEOs, and played. I remember there were occasions where we'd play 4, 5, 6 games a week. Someone would come round, and we'd have 2 games on one night, 2 games on the next, in the run up to tournaments and things like that. So
sounds glorious.
I've been there. I've really pushed down the competitive route quite a few times. And then when YouTube came around, then when this started coming up, it was a way of just sharing what we were doing, and this kind of just took over. So I understand that some people really like going to tournaments and competitive events, but I think some of those, one of the motivations for doing it is to play more 40k. And to go away at a weekend and play 5 games. And there's some competitive players out there who don't play that much in their free time, except in the run-ups to tournaments, and then go and nail a tournament, and then it might go back to 1 a month. And there's all sorts of varieties out there. But me, I find myself in a very lucky position where I get to play a lot of 40k once or twice a week, every week, without fail for the last, 5 years. So that itch to play more, to do it a different... I'm also very privileged because lovely people like Joe turn up with brand new armies that I've never seen before, and I get to play them. So I get to play lots of different people from all over the country, sometimes from other countries, with 9 times out of 10 beautifully painted armies with weird lists that I've never seen before. I'm spoiled. I know I'm a very spoiled position, but... So I don't feel like I want to go to any tournaments because, in a sense, I would have to do a bit less of this. And I like this. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, as well, I suppose you maybe carry a bit of gravitas around with you for that sort of thing. You might be viewed upon as some kind of worthy trophy for the tournament game. It's like, you're never gonna guess who I played. Spanked him. Ruined. I have to say though that I have gone to since the YouTube thing happened. I have been to 2 tournaments, and that was the No Retreat tournaments in Gibraltar. I'm going to No Retreat 8 at the end of September as well. So there you go. There's 3, but their tournaments are very unique in the sense that they have a really high painting standard, so that automatically shuts out a number of people, and also they've got a very peculiar comp way of building the armies. It's single faction only, no allies. It's the comp is quite restricted. The painting standard is quite high, so most of the people who go there, a good 75 to 85% of the people who go there, are more in it for the narrative side of things, more in it because this is an army that they've lovingly built and crafted over many, many years. So 9 times out of 10, a lot of the armies aren't as tuned to the max as they could be.
Because I went to No Retreat 6, and I'll be going to No Retreat 8 as well. So I'll get to hang out with you then.
Hey, see you there, buddy.
Yeah, it should be good. I really enjoyed it. The one that I did, it was... the tables are probably the most interesting and well sort of painted boards sort of I've ever seen, on a par, if not better, with a lot of the Warhammer World ones. And everyone there is super friendly. It's all quite relaxed. There was only a few people there that are there to sort of win the tournament, but I think the majority of people are just there to sort of hang out with people and have fun. So it's always been good.
The other just to really labour that point home, the other thing is they pick you up from the airport, they look after your food, you sleep at the event, and the other thing they try and do is make sure that there is some of every faction represented. So you won't turn up and 50% of the field is Eldar flyers. There'll be 3 or 4 Eldar lists, 3 or 4 of this list, 3 or 4 of that. There's a wide variety of every single army represented.
What will you be taking, Winters, to this tournament this time around?
Murphy's War is coming. My orcs.
Beautiful. Are you adding anything fancy and new to the orcs, or are you just, or is that something you want to keep secret and keep it as a surprise?
I'm not taking a competitive list. It'll be a single battalion with 8 command points in it. But yeah, there's some people who turn up with stronger lists to try and win. I am bringing a list which is maybe 75% as strong as it could be, and I don't intend to win. I don't want to win. I want to just have fun. So I'm looking forward to losing my first fight and then having the next 4 really, really good fun games. So it's just a mixed orc list. Having said that, last year at No Retreat 7, I was the git who turned up with Imperial Knights, and I was the only one there with Knights. But I did that for a reason, because Knights are easier to play. You only have 5 models to shove around the table, and I wanted to enjoy the event more by having... See, the thing about Knights is you either lose horribly or you win horribly. There is no middle ground. Either your Knights get wiped off the table because your opponent has got something to deal with them, as happened with me in the first game, got tabled by turn 3, all the Knights gone, and then I accidentally won the next 4 because you either win or you lose with Knights. There's no middle ground. But I brought them along not to win. I ended up coming 3rd because I accidentally won the next 4. I brought them along so I had as much time in between the games to interact with people and speak to people and enjoy the hobby weekend.
No, absolutely. I suppose as well, when I was asking more about if you're adding anything specifically, it wasn't necessarily from a competitive standpoint, but if you're adding any cool new units that you're converting up or building, or just something something cool and new. I know Phil has been. I mean, I don't know, Phil. Are we privileged to tell what you've been doing? I mean, you have put it all over Instagram, so I assume it's a fairly fair game. Yeah. So Phil, what have you been working on for that one?
So I've been working on like a little inquisitorial retinue, and it was
little. Are you sure "little's" the word to describe half of it?
Well, it's getting there. I mean, it is quite small in terms of numbers. So I've got a custom-made Inquisitor who I'm going to represent for Eisenhorn, and then I've got a Demon Host model that I've been sort of making, which is a bit on the large size, I guess.
It's based on the Incarn, mate. It's massive.
Well, it's got a mixture of the Incarn legs, and then a torso of a Garrick Reaver, Sage of Sigmar, and then a Chaos Marine head. So it's more like if the Space Marine became a Demon Host as opposed to a weedy human. But that's good because it sort of fits the narrative of the story that I'm wanting. So it's a big model, but I don't mind too much, and neither does anyone else too much. I mean, I ran it past because I want to take it to the GT Heat 2 that we're doing up at Warhammer World. So I've run it past their event team, and they're happy with it. And then I've run it past Steve for No Retreat, and obviously he's happy with it as well. I think everyone's gone, it's sort of more rule of cool rather than, it's on a big base, and, you're modelling for advantage, because obviously I'm not. So
yeah, you're modelling for disadvantage.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Nice. Sounds... Is that coming to No Retreat 8?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm just worrying about the impending deadline of getting it all painted. So I'm in the final stretch of doing some basing on the Demon Host and a couple of other models, because I've done some conversions for some Crusaders that are Sisters of Silence with Skitarii helmets on. So I've had those done for ages, but I've just been adding some like rubble to their bases. But then I need to paint them all up along with some assassins and all the retinue and the Inquisitor and stuff. So I've got a lot to paint up in the next few months. So I should get it done. But that will be my sort of addition to my Krieg army.
Cool. See, because me with my Orc army, I cheated. It's all painted by denofimagination.com.
Fair enough.
I sent off certain waves to them, and wave 1 and wave 2 has appeared on YouTube so far, And Wave 3 turned up the other week, and I've just finished making the video for it. So Wave 3 of Murphy's War will be appearing on YouTube very shortly to see what's in my third wave. So yeah, adding all the time. The next wave is going to have Murphy himself in it. And Murphy, my war boss, is a converted model from about 14 different kits spanning about 20 years of Warhammer 40k.
And with your channel, you've also got an add-on to your channel with Liam, whose last name I cannot remember for the life of me. What brought that around?
So yeah, Liam has got his own YouTube channel called Morehammer, and so what brought it around? It's really we make videos about. I think we talked about it before. We're in a niche, which is Warhammer 40k is a niche, and then watching videos online is a niche. And so the market is really small. The number of players out there actually interested in this is very small, but fortunately they are very, very passionate and very caring and very interested in what we do. And honestly, gloves off, cards on the table, I would love to be able to do this full time. I'd love to be able to make videos, make YouTube content, make more, not just battle reports, but tutorials and terrain videos and review videos and things like that. And Mini Wargaming do this full time. They employ about 10 people. And Tabletop Tactics do this full time. And Strike and Scorpion does this full time. And I would love to be able to do this full time as well. But one of the things all those other channels have in common is that they have an extra. Mini Wargaming have the Vault, Tabletop Tactics have their own tabletoptactics.tv. They have another source of income coming in for those particularly fanatic and loyal followers who want to support them, who want to help them, can subscribe through a paid service. Because that's the only real way to monetize this enough to be able to pay the mortgage and pay the bills and keep the wife happy. YouTube isn't going to cut it for our size of hobby. So I'd like to do this full time. And the only way to get there would be to set up my own paid service, subscription service. So I can't do that on my own. I can't do it on my own because I've got a job. I still work for the man, not a man, for the man, in a factory in Swindon. I've been working there for 20 years this August. Shift work, days, nights, all over the place. I'm playing 40k. And I'd really like to try and get out of the factory if I can. I've got to the point where I've got quite a number of subscribers now and quite a number of people enjoying my videos. So I got to the point where I was thinking, could I do this? Could it become more than just a hobby? Could it become more than, because the YouTube money was essentially just paying for it because it's getting YouTube ad revenue through, which is negligible. And that was just paying for more terrain, more models, more army. Because when I started off on YouTube, I had Space Marines and AdMech, and that was it. Now I'm up to like 8, 9 armies because you're getting some money from ad revenue, and she was letting me spend it on more terrain, more models. So I haven't really made any money by the YouTube stuff. Just poured it back in and increasing the content and having a great time while doing it. And the channel continued to grow, and I was like, right, can I do this? Can I actually turn my hobby into a living? Because I think we can all agree it would be glorious if we could play 40k for a living.
Yeah.
So deploymentzone.tv is my attempt at trying to do this for a living, like those other great producers out there. And I couldn't do it on my own because I still work for the man. I don't have enough time left. There's not enough time in the day to continue to produce videos for YouTube and DZ on my own. I'd break myself. I can't do it. I don't have enough time. So I needed to find the kung fu in my panda. I needed to find the peanut butter in my sandwich. And I found him, and his name was Liam.
It sounds like a beautiful thing. I mean, speaking from our own experience of just doing this podcast, it's tough. It's tough to make time, especially for the three of us kind of working together on these things, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're producing nothing near the sorts of, output and stuff that obviously you're doing. We just go out fortnightly. It's mostly sitting around having a chat. The editing process, though it is a little bit laborious at times, is not especially complicated. And yeah, I mean, but it takes it. There's a lot of demands. I freely admit there was more than a handful of occasions over the course of this year where this podcast very nearly didn't happen one time around or another due to just life, the universe, and everything. So I more than sympathise with that, buddy. But it's a fantastic aspiration, and I mean, you're obviously on your way there. I mean, I think. Best of luck with it, mate. I hope it does work out for you, because I could think of no better way to earn a living than playing small toy soldiers all the time. That would be tremendous.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully it continues to grow, and hopefully at some point in the future I quit my job and fall back on this full time. And the thing is, as well, is there's loads of people there's 1,000 people on YouTube for every one person who subscribes. 1,000 people saying, I'll never pay any money for anything, I can watch it free on YouTube. But the people on YouTube will reap a benefit if I manage to do this full time, because I will be able to increase my output content both on deploymentzone.tv and on YouTube. That's the intention, is to make more videos, is to get more out there. Right now, focusing only on Warhammer 40k and some Titanicus and very little Horus Heresy. I'd love to be able to put some more Horus Heresy content out there. And I've talked about with Liam on more than one occasion about doing a bit of Age of Sigmar and starting a Sigmar army. But I can't do that. I don't have any more time. So hopefully this works out, and hopefully in a couple more years I can create more content for people out there. But it's the people who subscribe to deploymentzone.tv who will help that happen. So there's my plea to everyone who's listening.
Well,
help me to help you.
Absolutely. We can, get better together. Make deploymentzone.tv great again, or words to that effect. That's awesome, man. I mean, again, like I say, it's a great aspiration. I know, obviously having had the good fortune to talk to people like the Lawrences of this world and some of the other guys who are slaving away at it, and having the good fortune of speaking to other kind of influencers and YouTube content creators and people out there doing all sorts of different things. It's a hell of a graft, and I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate how much work goes into it a lot of the time. It always sort of, from the surface of it, it looks, tremendous fun. And I know, I speak from my experience, it's tough to always turn it around. Especially, I mean, we don't even do the YouTube ad revenue thing. We don't do any ad revenue stuff. We've purposely kept away from that in the initial instance, because bizarrely I felt a weird sense of strange obligation almost. Or not obligation, but I feel like I'd have a strange sense of obligation if I was to start to seek to monetize or to do like a Patreon or something like that, because I like the relative freedom that I do it because I enjoy it, and then if I stop enjoying it, I'll just walk away from it. I think if I found myself in a weird financial scenario where people are paying for me to do it, it might stop to be what it was in the first instance. But I think, again, obviously, once you hit that pivot point where you actually move into a situation where you're producing regular content and it's something that you're really, really, really enjoying and want to aspire to do more of, I think it's just, it's a great way to go about it. And we've always said, right, we've never said that we would never, ever, ever try and do a Patreon thing, or we'd never, ever start doing advertising. But again, it's one of those things, it's just like, I never know when to push the button on it, or if I ever will, or if we ever will. I shouldn't just speak about it myself, because everyone's involved.
I think you're probably on a similar path to me, because I know exactly what you mean. The first 2.5 years, I didn't have ad revenue on YouTube. I didn't click that button. I didn't want to ask for money. I was doing it for the love of it, and I am still doing it for the love of it, to share. You've got to love this. Like you mentioned, the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes. If you don't enjoy doing this, you won't do it. And I really enjoy doing this. But so for the first couple of years, there's no ads at all. But when it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then people kept asking me, well, why don't you get something back? You deserve to get something back. You're putting lots and lots of effort into this. And it was the subscribers in the end who, strangely enough, most of the times you think that some subscribers don't want to watch adverts, but the chorus amongst the subscribers telling me to put adverts on made me put adverts on. I think it was 2.5 years or 3 years in. So then I started monetizing the videos. And I have got a Patreon as well. And I stayed away from that for 4 years, for a very, very long time. But again, I didn't feel comfortable asking people for money. And it's rare to hear me even talk about it now, because I never talk about it I rarely talk about it in my videos. Not never, but 99% of the time I don't mention the patrons. And that's because I don't want to ask for money. If people want to help me that way, they can. And it was some of the core patrons who are with me now who are the ones who convinced me to go to Patreon. They were saying, look, we want to give you, we want to help you, we want to help you get these armies, we want to support you. By not allowing us to support you this way, you're doing us a disservice again. So I launched the Patreon thing. There's obviously a few more ins and outs of it behind that, but the point is I resisted the ad revenue and I resisted the Patreon thing in the way that you did as well.
That's a big
but now, with deploymentzone.tv, I'm all in now.
Well, that's the thing, man. And I think that's, you know what, though, that's, you know, I think, and I think that resonates in what you do, though, right? And I think a lot of people will always get behind someone who clearly is doing it for more than just, you know, you can tell when someone's just in it for the money, or not that anyone would be in it for the money within this hobby, for God's sakes, but I mean, some people are, I think. I mean, I have seen very early, you know, indoctrinization of Patreons and other things from the outset. But, you know, at the same time, those guys do tend to sort of fizzle out or hit a relative glass ceiling. I think it takes that passion, enthusiasm, and that, you know, that genuine kind of love for what you're doing to you know, to take it to that next level. And I think, you know, I mean, again, you know, full disclosure, I mean, before this, I mean, I'd only really started watching your stuff off the back of Joe appearing on your channel. Haven't watched a great deal of it yet. I think I'm going to, certainly after this conversation, start watching more and more of it, you know, and that's not just me trying to sort of shill myself out or suggest that, you know, I'm doing it for a cheap plug, given the fact that you're here talking to us now. But it's that thing, man, where, you know, I think you get that from talking to you, and it's great to sort of hear that fandom for it. And I think that's what we all do it for, right? I mean, at least that's what I try and do it for. I assume that's the same for you too as well, right, Joe, Phil?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like the reason why we kind of started this podcast up in the first place was because of my previous job, when I was like van driving, and it's like, I've got to drive to Manchester today. I'll phone up Dan and I'll talk to him for an hour, and then like Dan would have to hang up and go do work. So I'm like, oh, I'll phone Phil now. And we'll talk. And inevitably, all we ever really talked about was the hobby. So, and then one day you're like, why don't we just record our conversations and go from there? So it wasn't anything to do with money or any kind of schemes. It was just because like maybe people would be interested to hear what we talk about.
I think it's good painting material, podcasts, sitting down and listening to a podcast while you're painting away. And I think people do that with a lot of YouTube videos as well. A lot of them aren't actually looking at the screen. They're just glancing at it while they're painting away, having a 2-hour, someone chatting away and talking about rules and talking about exciting explosions in the background.
No, without a doubt. So, I mean, obviously, you've got this tournament coming up in September. You've got your waves upon waves of new orcs coming through. Are there any other projects or armies that you're working on in the background at the moment?
Other stuff that's happening right now, really, is there's the Death of Hope narrative campaign. When this podcast goes up, that's something that I've been filming over the last few months with Say Hi Paul. That's going to be, the first game's on YouTube, and the remainder of it is on Deployment Zone, and we really enjoyed putting that together. So that was good fun. But project-wise, after the orcs, I'm going to be adding, so this is, no one knows this yet, I'm going to be adding probably a Chaos Knight or two to the end of all things, my Plague Marine Warband. I haven't even bought it yet, but they're coming. And the other thing I'm really interested in, and again, I haven't said this to anyone, so this is an exclusive, is the sisters look good, don't they?
Oh, don't they ever?
Oh, it's done.
Did you see the latest Bulletin 11, where they had that picture of the painted helmeted one at the bottom of the article, Warhammer Community?
Yes.
I'll tell you
something. I think they They were surprised by how big Imperial Knights were when they came out. They were surprised by how big Custodians were when they came out. They sold out of them. They're going to be blown away by how big Sisters are. I haven't heard one person say one bad thing about them.
I mean, early doors you saw some really mad people trying to pick holes, but man, like, as the process has gone on, that miniature, I mean, if that is just your rank and file Sister of Battle, I mean, that is a gorgeous army right there. I mean, that is stunning. Sorry, Joe.
I was saying, when I saw that picture go up, I was like, must not do this. Must not do this. Like, I've got armies that I need to concentrate on. And then I walked into the shop, and I was like, there's a Saint Celestine there. I'm going to put that on the shelf, ready to paint when I have the time to do it. Because I have terrible just self-control issues in this arena. So I was like, this is going up there, and I will, when I know there's a deadline for the release models, that's when I'll unpack it and build it and paint it. Yeah, the new stuff is beautiful.
I mean, who doesn't want an army of religious fanatics purging the Xenos, purging the heretics? That's 40k, right?
Oh god, yes.
I think as well, though, I mean, I'm really excited to see what the kind of extra elements they add to it outside of the sisters themselves, but some of the also kind of like more kind of ministorum elements, or if they still kind of add all those kind of priesty parts to it as well. I know they've really focused on the battle sisters up to this point, but what that overall army looks like. There was a really great Voxcast a couple of weeks ago with like this fella who was responsible for archiving all of Games Workshop's IP, and he talked a lot about all the kind of weird and nuances of the 40k lore, which is something that Phil is super into. The Blanche, I can't say it. Phil, help me out here.
Blanchitsu.
There you go. Thank God you're here. I mean, yeah, and those elements of having like all these like priests and other things that are littered in amongst the the Space Marines to make them work and all the rest of it. I am quite excited by the prospect of all that stuff alongside these gorgeous miniatures. I think it's going to be really hard not to just want to add even a patrol to your collection, isn't it? It's going to be pretty, yeah.
Surely this is a perfect opportunity for them to release something brand new that we've never seen before as well. Brand new units, brand new vehicle, brand new something. If they're doing it from the ground up.
I think they've pretty much said that they're not just going to redo the current range, and they are going to add some new stuff in. So who knows what it will be, but it'll be pretty exciting to see.
Yeah.
I reckon they'll go with mini saints. So you've got Saint Celestine, big crazy saint, and then they'll add in weird, like, ethereal, spectrally, like, wibbly women that are all kind of filled up with Emperor's power, but not quite as much as Saint Celestine. So maybe they've got, like, little wings or something. I don't know. Some sort of weird, like, sanguinary guard vibe or something. That would be pretty cool.
I'd like to see more church-based musical instrument artillery. That's what. Because the organ, where it is an incredible model, and I just love the aesthetics. Just that model there epitomizes the whole of like the Imperium shtick kind of thing, and I kind of feel like there needs to be like more of that, whether like something based around harps, for instance, or.
What churches did you go to where they played the harp?
I grew up in the country. We all have all fanciful things around here.
I grew up in the countryside as well, mate. We didn't have harps around my neck of the woods. This is what happens when you're on the Quantox or wherever you are.
I was on Exmoor.
Sorry, the moors, not the Quantox.
Maybe that's why they're all strange folk around there. So,
people just wandering around, leaving harps lying about.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, and I'd like to see some kind of like almost like Bretonnian-esque aspects, because obviously they've squatted the Bretonnians. So I'd like to see them port some of that kind of aesthetic across as well, like the questoral knights of the church kind of thing coming in.
Yeah, they could have a knight type element. Yeah.
Or they could have like a mobile choir. Wouldn't that be something? Like just like a, like as an expansion of it, it's just like this anti-grav platform, just surrounded by a bunch of servitors that are just designed to sing music or something. That'd be wonderful. Some kind of thing of that nature would be pretty cool.
It'd have flamers all over it though.
Yeah, just the flamers keep them in the air, just on a complete plume of flames as it's flying around, burning everything while singing all sorts of mad music. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Top of my wish list for the sisters, which means it isn't going to happen, but top of my wish list, if my dream could come true, it would be that Saint Celestine isn't the only saint, that they release another saint. And her name is Sabatine of the Sabbath Worlds Crusade. Gaunt's Ghosts.
A Ghost Sabatine model would blow my mind. But she'd have to come with a Milo model as well. Is he still alive? Did Abbott say that he was still alive going around with her?
Did you read the last book? Because he's finished the series.
Oh, I haven't read the last book yet. I haven't caught up on Audible with it. But...
Well, I won't spoil anything for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it is really, 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 really times infinity good.
Times infinity.
It's not just one of the best books, 40k books I've ever read. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read. The War Master and the Anarch, the last two books in the Gaunt's Ghost series, are just incredible. And they follow each other. You know, the Gaunt's Ghost series, each book is a standalone book. The last two books, you've got to get them at the same time because it finishes, the third one finishes and the fourth one begins. It's incredible.
I'm going to have to get that because there's times when
Imagine there was Saint Sabatine and rules for her.
Yeah, because I think one time we were doing the podcast and we were looking through all the new Black Library artwork and we were talking about I thought it was Saint Celestine, and then Joe says that it wasn't, and it was the one from the Dan Abner books. So it would be really cool to actually see a second saint, or a variety of different saints, maybe.
Yeah, they could release 4 saint models, and one of them just happened to be Sabatine.
Yeah, exactly. But then they'd have to release Ghost as well, and then I wouldn't be able to control myself, and then I'd.
So essentially, you agreed with my opinion from the outset that they could just have a squad of saints, and that would be it. But admittedly, I was talking about little saints as opposed to the big ones, so I suppose I'll retract my...
Big boy saints.
Big boy saints.
Yeah.
There you go. Could happen. But there we go. I reckon we have talked a great length to our friend Winters SEO. Thank you so much for joining us, mate. Do you have any closing thoughts or feelings or things you want to express at this time before we move on to the next segment?
Choc chip hobnobs are the bomb. I discovered them a couple of weeks ago. Have you tried chocolate chip hobnobs?
I've not tried chocolate chip hobnobs myself. Joe, have you had the privilege?
I've had the chocolate coated ones.
No, you see, this is where you're going wrong, because the chocolate coated ones are glorious, but sometimes they can be a bit too sugary. Whereas the chocolate chip hobnobs has got little bits of chocolate chips inside the hobnobs. You can eat a whole packet of them and not even feel bad about it.
I mean,
I'm on it first thing in the morning.
I excel at eating packs of hobnobs without feeling bad about them already, but that sounds doubly incentivizing for that one. Is there anything else in there? Some bits of caramel crunch or anything, or just pure chocolate?
No, it's a hobnob with chocolate chips in it, so it's a level above. It is the king piece on the chessboard, the queen piece on the chessboard. It's glorious. I discovered them. I don't know how long they've been out. They may have been out for a decade or so, but I only just bumped into them because normally she doesn't let me go down the biscuit aisle because bad things can happen. And I saw them and I wondered what was that, and I put one in and they were gone real quickly. And then I bought a chunk more the next time to the shops and they were gone real quick. I have a problem. I'm not sponsored by choc chip hobnobs or McVitie's at all. I'm just trying to share the word. People must try these.
But you're open to offers, though, right? I mean, if they came along, you wouldn't be against the idea.
I would not be against the idea. No, I'm convinced that the Emperor of Mankind is alive and walks amongst us today, and he works for McVitie's, and he made choc chip hobnobs.
I mean, that would be a fantastic sideline venture for the Emperor of Mankind, Maybe they should have thrown that in towards the end of the Siege of Patera books, where it's oh wait, all my McVitie's money has run out. We're going to have to resort to one of these other businesses of the time to fund the wall or whatever they were doing there.
Because as well as a great warrior, he's a scientist, right? And this is pure science. This is witchcraft that goes into these things.
That's true.
I will say, if you go on Winters' channel, you are well supplied with both biscuits and cups of tea. So it's just for that experience alone is totally worth it.
There you go.
Oh, brilliant. I require plenty of tea to keep myself going, so that's good to know.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean,
the tea phase happens after the morale phase.
I suppose actually, while we're on the topic of going around your place, because we didn't really say it exactly, if someone wants to appear on Winters SEO, what would you recommend as the best approach?
Don't get in contact with me.
Leave me alone. Go away. I'm
oversubscribed. I'm booked up for the entire year, and I'm not taking on any bookings for 2020 yet, because otherwise some people will fall through the cracks. It gets a bit mental.
Fine.
The best thing to do for next year is to you can email me at winters40k@gmail.com. The address is on the YouTube page. There's also the Deployment Zone address on deploymentzone.tv, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can message me and send me lots of pictures. The best thing to do would be to have an army that isn't seen on the channel very often, like Krieg, and make sure it's gloriously painted. So when I look at it, I'm like, wow, I have to put that on YouTube. That's always a best bet. That's always a good start. Another good start as well, I hate to plug it, but it is true. It's if you are subscribed to deploymentzone.tv, or if you are a patron and get in contact with me, then you're pretty much guaranteed, because I want to give something back. I want to give something back.
Makes absolute sense, man. And there's no harm in that plug. And also, all that information that he has just, stated will be in the description below. So all the various links and things that you should need. If you want to, if you find yourself needing them, you can locate them below this YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube, but also available in the description of all your various podcast platforms. So that's been great. Gents, any closing thoughts or feelings? Joe, Phil, things you want to get off your chest before we move along?
I'm good. I can only sing Winter's Praise, and which sounds like an obscure song, I know, but it's all good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Phil, any predictions for your game against Winters? You got any battle talk or mind games you want to play at this time?
Oh, not at all, but I'm thoroughly looking forward to it, for sure.
There you go. It's not often you're that excited about travelling to Swindon.
Well, exactly. I don't think I've ever been before, but it's supposed to be fun.
Been to Swindon?
I don't think so.
I was in Swindon just the other week. This time last week, in fact, I was in Swindon. Mad times. Fun for all.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. My sister went to the John Wilkes Academy of Performing Arts or something, and she had some end of year show that I had to attend. It was fabulous, actually. To be fair, it was a wonderful time. I fully support her. She's great, so that was good. But yeah, it did mean that I had to frantically drive to Swindon after work, which was a bit of a slog. But all worth it in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, I guess with that said, Winters, I'm not going to presume that you know how this podcast normally functions, but just so you are aware, in case you weren't already, when we move on to another segment, we try to transition with a transitional noise. And this can be anything, You could do our usual kind of woo effect.
I'd say imagine, in Wayne's World, where they go doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah, that's where we normally go.
Absolutely, but we would always, out of courtesy, offer the opportunity to do the transitional noise to our special guests. So are you willing to take up the mantle, or take up the challenge, I suppose, and transition us to our next topic?
Well, I was thinking, a thing popped into my head, not making a noise, but saying something along the lines of, please stay tuned, this is not the way the world ends.
Welcome back, everybody. In this segment of the podcast, we're going to be doing a general roundup on the July issue of White Dwarf, the new and improved, the ultimate Warhammer magazine known as White Dwarf. I'm sure everyone out there has been enjoying the expanded rules content featured in the new and improved White Dwarf. But we're here to talk about the general magazine in the general sense, the various improvements that have been brought to it, talk about the things that 40k related in it, and do a little bit of a summary of what we think of them, their Blood Ravens, and the rules encased within. But Phil is the primary, man of, White Dwarf appreciation. What would you say your general opinion is on the ongoing White Dwarf fun? As a subscriber, as an invested person, what do you think?
Well, to start off with, I do like the cover. Like, you get, as a subscriber, you get a special full colour...
full colour?
A full colour, full image spread across the front and... sometimes front and back covers, bizarrely not this time. So this one is artwork of Gabriel Angelos. Beautiful artwork on the front, and basically the title of White Dwarf isn't in normal, I don't know how to describe it really, in normal solid colour. It is in fact a spot varnish, which means it shines when you reflect it in the light. If you looked at it straight on, it's practically invisible.
I think you described that perfectly, mate.
So it's a very nice novelty. It's a nice little touch for subscribers. And normally on the back, if you get the regular issue, they say this is what might be coming next month. And instead we don't get that. And normally it's a double page spread on the front and back, but this time it's a picture of some Age of Sigmar Stormcast Eternals fighting some undead creatures of some kind. So, back issue, not particularly interesting. But the front's always good. And then the format has obviously been revised. I think since January is when the new format came in.
Yeah, January, February time. It felt like it was relatively early on in the year. Joe, do you know precisely, or would you just guess same as Phil, January time?
Yes.
Good. Thanks, Joe.
I think it was like a New Year, New White Dwarf thing, wasn't it? Like New Year, New Me kind of thing going on.
There you go. They're slimming down. They're down the gym. Like you, Joe.
Oh, yeah. Just like me. We're one in the same. White Dwarf and I. Hang on. I'm gonna try and get to the first codex, the first edition, without pulling my phone across the room, and I'm unsuccessful. So I'm going to give up. But yes.
Fantastic.
January.
Enhancing our content as always, Joe.
Yeah. I'm just trying not to kill myself. That's the thing here.
Yeah, that is a day-to-day challenge, I'm sure.
Yeah. Just breathing in and out is the first challenge of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for listeners out there that might not own a copy of White Dwarf, shall I give you a bit of a rundown of, if I flick through it, the rough contents of the general structure of the new White Dwarf, so you can get a general idea of what's in it and how it's broken down, because they've made a real thing about splitting out all the different game systems. So all of the 40k is now in one place altogether. All of the Age of Sigmar is in one place altogether. Then all the boxed games is in a separate section.
Cool, man.
As well.
Give us the blow-by-blow account. What are we getting in the July issue of White Dwarf?
So it starts off with the contact section, which is basically the reader's letters. Normally that's one section on its own and it's a couple of pages, but now they've interspersed it with the reader's models. Ooh. So there's always 1 or 2 pages where if you send in photos to the White Dwarf email address, and you're very lucky enough to be selected, your photo of your model will appear there as well, which is something I'd always love to do. And I think one day I'm going to make that happen. And I think I've only once ever sent in some photos, so I think I probably need to work on that and actually get around to it.
It's like the readers' wives section. Do you get paid £200 like you do in some popular top shelf magazines?
I really doubt it.
No.
I think you get the honour and the glory of knowing it's in there. There's always a nice little fun section that I always read, no matter what, is for Ask Grombindel, who is the White Dwarf. So there's always a question aimed at him. And this week, or this month even, is all about Black Templars, which, if you've been listening, know I'm a big fan of. So this one is talking about, now that the Black Templars have been reinforced with Primaris Marines, do they now get librarians? The answer is no. They still don't, basically. But he goes into a few possible theories as to why, and he makes a few complaints that you've not asked a question about Druardin, because obviously he's a dwarf and would prefer a question about that. So that's always like a fun little section to read.
Someone out there is exercising their split personality. This is good.
Exactly. Yes, one of the writers is having fun doing that. Then there's a sort of generic Warhammer section, which is the worlds of Warhammer, and then Phil Kelly tends to lead up this section, and he's doing one about the background of Age of Sigmar and 40k. In this one, it's in particular about the gods of the mortal realms. So because it's non-40k, we can skip past that. And then it becomes the 40k section, which is Echoes from the Warp, which is the bit I really enjoy reading. It's so this month is Robin Crudunt, who's one of the rules writers, and it tends to be either him or someone else from the 40k rules writing team, talking about different rules, different developments, like the reasons why they do things. It's a real good behind-the-scenes take on the design studio and what they're doing. Last month was a brilliant one, all about the evolution of rules. And for example, they talked about the cult ambush rule for Gene Stealer cults and how that developed from the original, from the 7th edition version to the index version, and then how it became fully formed in the final 8th edition codex. So that's always a fantastic must-have read for any 40k player. This one I haven't actually read, so I can't comment on too much. And then it goes into the Blood Ravens. So there's probably, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. It says about 14 pages all on lore.
Crikey, 14 pages, and 2 of which are rules. No,
in addition to the 2 that are rules.
So there's 16 pages in total of Blood Ravens.
Yes, yeah.
Blimey.
So only 2 pages of rules. So if you're expecting something on the size of the Ynnari or the Assassins, maybe you'll be a bit disappointed. But we can talk about that. Are we doing that as a separate section? Should we talk about that later?
We'll talk about it later. We'll wrap it up with our opinions on the Blood Ravens. Joe sounded like he was going to say something, though. What were you going to say,
Joe? Does at any point does it say that the Blood Ravens are 1,000 Suns?
No, but I don't know. If you read the lore, maybe it will hint to that.
They're always hinting at that, aren't they? They're always alluding to the, apparent 1,000 sunness within them.
Because I think the first 6 or so pages looks like it's a story, it's fiction. Then it becomes the proper index with some art and images and lore, all about the organisations and stuff. And then past the 2 pages of rules, there's a couple more images of someone's Blood Ravens army, how they've converted up a Primaris Gabriel Angelos, and how they've added Primaris into them. Then they're into their normal sort of regular tactical Space Marine army. Then there's paint splatter, all dedicated to how to paint up your Blood Ravens, which is exactly what they did with the Ynnari as well. So that, I think, is a regular feature. So if you want to know how to paint up Blood Ravens, that's quite interesting. And then the next section is still about 40k. It's all about the Indomitus Crusade fleets. So a bit of a background, all about that. And that is about 6 pages long. So, not too shabby. Quite detailed. And then the next bit I actually really like as well. Still 40k, Death World Jungles. So it's talking obviously about Katachan, but also about how other armies can be painted up to fit in with the environment of a jungle, jungle death world. So one of them is a great little painting scheme, and it tells you how to do it, how to paint up Space Marines in very much a Rogue Trader era, where Space Marines get camouflaged to match the terrain that they're fighting in. And they specifically call out what chapter is it? The Raptors. Yeah. Because apparently that's what they do. So they've still got a pauldron of their original chapter colour on them, and then the rest of them is painted up in a kind of green, sort of almost modern day military. And actually, it looks really fantastic. But I also like the fact that it does hark back to how they were crazily painted back in the Rogue Trader era. But they also talk about Katachan, Orcs, Tau, how to paint up the sort of digital camo style of the tower as well. And they go through pretty much a load of different races, showing you how to convert your models, how to paint them up, and also how to paint up the Death World's forest terrain as well. So that's a nice, like, chunky section, all themed around jungles. So regardless of what army you've got, you'll probably find that section quite interesting. And then that's it for the 40k section. It then blitzes through with Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So there's a bit, this time with Jervis Johnson, and I think he does regularly do this. He does a rules of engagement section, just talks about general Age of Sigmar topics. And then he does a different one each time. He did one a few months ago about etiquettes when you're playing games and when you're at tournaments, which was a great read, actually, regardless of whether you play Age of Sigmar or not, because a lot of it transposes to 40k as well, and especially since a lot of their senior rules writer team is within Age of Sigmar, not within 40k. So my personal opinion is a lot of the rules developments come from Age of Sigmar and then sort of trickle down to 40k. So if you want to see what they're doing, it's always, it's always a good read on that one section within Age of Sigmar. Then they're doing Tale of Four Warlords, which is 4 people from the studio, normally building and playing games, sort of simultaneously, slowly building up an army from a small size to a much larger size, and that's spread out over several issues. And sometimes they do that for 40k. This time it's all on Age of Sigmar. So I'll skip past that.
I was going to say, because I mean, in essence, in terms of actual 40k content, so you've got the stuff you just talked about there. They've got kill teams in there still, though, right?
Yes, that will be right at the end.
They finish off on kill teams.
It starts off with the 2 big systems. So it starts off with 40k, then it's on Age of Sigmar. So there's a double-page spread all about the new General's Handbook. Then there is let's see, this looks like a battle that's happening, which goes over like 10 plus pages, if not a bit more.
Maybe
it's more like 20 pages. So that's the big battle report that they have.
And that's for Age of Sigmar this time around,
yes.
is it?
So that's of Age of Sigmar. It is sometimes, I think they alternate pretty much monthly. Yeah. Because last month was 40k, which was quite an interesting one, because I'm pretty sure it was Duncan and his knights. I can't remember who he was against though. So this time, Age of Sigmar. And then we get on to the sub games, which are boxed games. So there's one called Glory Points, which is all about Night Vault, and it's all talking about card combos in your decks and deck building. So that I always skip past, basically. Yep. There's a cool little section in this one, though, which is because they add on extra rules and they do some extra things. So there's a mini game for Night Vault called Arena Mortis, which is a 3 to 6 player game where I think you get one model each and you play on just like one tile, one board. If that makes sense, rather than the normal 2. So it's a much smaller game, and I presume it will be much quicker. And this is done by our good friend John Bracken. So big shout out to him.
Good friend? When did John Bracken become our good friend?
Oh, me and Sean were hanging out with them at Warhammer Fest, saying hello.
Oh, me and Sean hanging out.
Because Sean's obviously the Underworld's player, so I think he knows him probably better than we do.
Well, there you go. I mean, definitely knows him better than I do. I never heard the name before in my life, Mr. John Bracken.
John is the guy, really tall Irish guy that used to run the Warhammer Festival, not Warhammer Festival, Warhammer World event.
Oh, yeah, John.
Then he moved on to occasionally presenting on Warhammer Live, and I think he still does appear from time to time. Yeah. And then he moved across to be this 2-man team that deal with Underworlds.
Joe?
He once called me by my name. Once.
Really?
Once he remembered.
Yeah. But then I haven't seen him now for like a year and a half, so he's probably forgotten me.
Your good friend John Bracken has forgotten all about you, Joe.
I know, I feel used, if anything.
He's going to go on in life having never really ever needed to think about you ever again. Unless you become a big, celebrity 40k player through your ongoing efforts and attempts to get better and better at the game. You never know.
Yeah.
He could know your name yet again.
he might turn up and be like, "Oh, it's my good friend Joe."
Oh, my best buddy.
Many minutes we've spent together.
Exactly.
He might remember who you are. He might remember.
Exactly. Look, who's that cuddly fella over there? Well, you won't be cuddly before long. You're getting too hench. Terrifying, really.
Shaved off my beard. I'll look like an entirely new human being.
I'm not sure I like this new human being, Joe. I like the, fat, disgusting wreck. that was the Joe I loved.
He was much more approachable.
He was a friendlier man.
Scary and intimidating, is that it?
Yeah, that's the idea. Scare all my opponents into winning it.
He's going to start flexing at the other side of the board. He's going to come in the shorts and vest.
Are you going to roll like a 1 to seize and be like, that was a 6? And you're going to just stare at them until they agree with you? Is that how you're going to play this game now?
Yeah, and then I'll pick up the dust and like Odd Job in Goldfinger, just crush the dice in my fingers. That'll be my plan. Obviously, it'll be a fake one that I've planted.
Yeah. Well, you did say, I think you just said pick up the dust instead of dice. So, yeah, that would be very easy to crush dust into dust.
Yeah. It would be a dice made of dust.
Okay.
Brilliant. Anyway, I'll keep going on. So past the section on Arena Mortis, there's a section on Adeptus Titanicus.
Yay!
So this time it's about Crusade Titan Legions. So from what I gather, if you don't want to play as one of the more well-known, like classic Titan Legions, it's all rules for creating your own Crusade Legion, where you get Legion traits and abilities. So I think that's actually in specific war gear as well. So that's actually really cool. I'm surprised that those kind of rules aren't in any of the previous books though already, because they've done a couple of supplements that are like campaigns and stuff like that. So it's cool that it's in here, but I'm surprised it hasn't been in a book up until this point.
I really wish that more people would play Adeptus Titanicus, including me. I haven't played it once yet. I've spent money on it. I've bought it. I own it. I've still never played it. Phil, how about you?
The same. My copy is still up in the loft, waiting to come out one day.
Have you played it?
I've played it a couple of times actually. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I once heard Titanicus described as the best game that you're not playing.
That's exactly right, mate. I think it's a fantastic game.
Yeah,
based on the rules that I read.
The game system's great. The models are beautiful. The game's a lot more developed now than it was when it came out because there's lots more knights. I think that's the problem with the game that suffered.
I think that's the issue with all of the specialist games like Necromunda and Blood Bowl. It's like on release and for the first year, there's only a handful of like units that you can play with, and it takes a good year or two for like stuff to come out. So now you've got all the different titans. It becomes a bit more interesting.
People have moved on now. They don't care anymore. It's like when The Division first came out. Remember that game? It was a terrible game because you couldn't do anything when it first came out. A year later, when everyone had stopped playing it, it was incredible. And I think that's exactly what Titanicus is having.
There you go. They're in that terrible situation. That being said, I mean, I do like the look of the new... I always forget what the name of the knights are, but the new knights that they've got the little dinky versions of that they're releasing in pre-order.
The Forion.
Yeah, that looks cool, man.
Yes, those are really cool, actually.
I might pre-order those.
To pick up a set of those if I was going to run a little Legio.
I'm a big fan of the Cerastus Knights, the Lancers. They're beautiful models, they are.
But this is the thing, I own a decent amount of Titans and bits and pieces for that game right now. We should play it at some point. We'll need to make that mission. In fact, actually, for anyone who, reaches out and talks to us, are you playing Adeptus Titanicus? Are you enjoying Adeptus Titanicus? Are we really, really missing out as much as we think we are? Or are we entirely wrong? Please let us know. Look at that, guys. Desperate pleas for engagement from our listeners. I wonder how that'll go. Probably result in comments.
We'll send you Greg's...
Don't promise these things again, Joe. You never fulfill these promises. What were you going to say? A Greg's what?
What, vegan sausage roll?
Greg's steak bake.
A steak bake? Why did... Oh, Joe, that's like one of the more expensive items. That's like £1.30.
Yeah, but it's the best one. It's the best thing they sell. If you go into Greg's and they don't have steak bakes, you just walk straight out.
Mate, come on.
You spit on the floor and you walk out.
The humble sausage roll is still their best option overall.
I don't know, all the yum-yums.
Yeah, I've heard lots of people tell me the vegan special roll sausage roll is actually all right, but I'm not sure I can get on board with that logic. Something about it doesn't sit right with me. Phil, you're the sort of man who would eat a vegan sausage roll. What's your opinion on that?
Do you know what? I've not had one yet.
Oh my God!
Things, and I would actually give it a go.
There you go.
I'm not averse to it.
No, absolutely. I'm not averse to it, but I wouldn't choose to eat it. You know.
Well, if I had a choice between a regular one and a vegan one, I would give the vegan one a go. Just to it's better.
You take.
We'd not buy both, and then if you didn't like the vegan one, throw it away, and then eat the normal one and feel better.
No, that's also an option.
Isn't that what happens with vegan food when you throw it away? As soon as it touches the surface of the ground, because of its incredible eco-friendliness, it immediately sprouts grass underneath it, and then sunshine rains down on it. And it essentially saves the earth.
If that was the way it happened, there'd be a lot more crazy people throwing food around.
Well, true.
All right. So, moving on.
Moving on.
To the next section is all about Necromunda, but it's not the Necromunda you know and love. It is the
love's
Necromunda.
A bit of a strong word.
It's the Necromunda Underhive Wars computer game, which is coming out based on the Necromunda game of the same name. So it's just got some concept art and some screenshots, and obviously a little bit of background as to how it's coming along. The screenshots do look pretty promising. It looks interesting.
Does it say what kind of game it is? Because I kind of felt like that. Like a Necromunda game would work best in like an XCOM kind of scenario.
I think it is similar to XCOM in the same way that Wartime was. I think it's using that similar kind of radial functionality. So effectively from your one of your models that you can select, you have a big circle going around of like several meters, and each time you pass through one circle, you spend an action point. And then there's another larger circle, which is another action point. And I presume it will be in that same mechanics. It probably actually explains it in the article, but obviously I've only had this for a day, so I've not read it yet.
It sounds like you're not prepared like I usually am.
Well, that's possibly true, but I probably read more of it than you would have read. So
that's true. You opened it.
Well, exactly. Yes.
The cellophane has been taken off it. That's a step in the right direction. Normally, Joe's just rubbing the cover against his forehead, hoping that some of the information will seep in.
So then it moves on to Middle Earth. So there's a Hunt for the Lost Ring scenario, which is the sort of third and final part.
Did they lose a ring, or was it the ring that was?
I think this is because originally in the lore there was like a whole bunch of rings made, and this is like a scenario based on trying to find one of these extra rings, I believe.
Unless it's the ring, I suppose. It could be either, I suppose.
It could be. So there's a couple of special scenario missions, so that you get 3 actually in this. Then you move on to Blackstone Fortress. So there's A Deadly Lore Part 2, which is again by John Bracken, finishing off the A Deadly Lore Part 1, I guess, from last month's. So it's talking all about the Amble, basically. So there's a bunch of extra missions for you to play. So you get 3 extra missions, and then it moves on to Black Library. So it's talking about some books like Gloomspite, and it looks like it's an interview with Andy Clark, and there's some lovely cover art dotted around. Ooh, and then one thing I haven't noticed, Inquisitor Eisenhorn for Kill Team has appeared, which it will be interesting to read because it might potentially give you some ideas for if he's going to change at all at some point in 40k.
Do you suspect he's going to change in 40k anytime soon?
Well, I do hope that they've been obviously doing these little index books for White Dwarf. So obviously Blood Ravens this time, Ynnari and Assassins before. I do think Inquisitors is probably next on the list or coming soon as one of those sort of factions that haven't been touched yet, and they're still in the index. So it makes sense that Eisenhorn and his buddies will appear. Weirdly, it's only Eisenhorn on his own. There's no rules for extra Inquisitors, and I do remember it was almost like a year ago now, where the rumor was that the third expansion was going to be Inquisitors for Kill Team, and obviously we got Kill Team Arena instead. So either that was a complete rumor that was made up, or maybe it just hasn't come out yet, and it might be something still to come down the line.
Do they even have Inquisitor models anymore?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can still buy a few of them, but they're all fine cast.
Yeah, they're all on direct order as fine cast, and they still sell Greyfax.
Oh yeah, Greyfax is the newest one in plastic.
Yeah.
And you can still get Eisenhorn as well.
Yeah. And you can kit bash them from various bits and pieces. You know, you can take some stuff from your Tempestus Prime, Scion things and build them up with some other bits and pieces and some Vestrans or whatever and get it done that way.
That's not what Games Workshop's about anymore. They don't really like you kit bashing and doing stuff like that. You just buy the kit as it is, and that's how they give you the rules for stuff.
Yeah, but you say that, though. There's still, I think, an element to that. I think what they've essentially done more and more now is that they're about offering the more base solution, but I think they are also keen to try and promote the existence of those kit bashing options and other things, certainly through their literature, like White Dwarf. There's lots of examples of lovely articles of people kit bashing stuff together and explaining the nuances of that. And it's fair to say as well that kit bashing isn't necessarily as, quote, easy as it may once have been, because a lot of the models now aren't necessarily all ball jointed or similar in that way, but they do still kind of have things that go together.
It's funny when you think about that, actually. It's kind of like from 10, 15 years ago when everything was in metal and kit bashing was really difficult. We've gone through this weird full circle of everything being multi-part kit bashing really easy because everything sticks together with everything. And we've now come back round again to everything being like easy build, single piece models that are really difficult to kit bash.
But they
not
do
single
sort of
piece.
much better in terms of the dynamic poses you get with the mono pose models. Is so much better. The trade-off of having a Space Marine who can move his arm just up and down or his head left to right is kind of like worth it, I think, because you can still glue models together and then cut their arms off and swap them around. And there was a great article in last month's White Dwarf, all about that, talking about Primaris Marines, and they took a bunch of different studio designers and what they've been doing on their armies, all to do with Primaris Marines. So it was like a guy making Deathwatch models using the sort of standard Kill Team Deathwatch models, but making them Primaris scale. How he did that, how he made a Watchmaster, and then there was a guy doing some Black Templars and a bunch of other factions as well. And it's like taking components from the standard tactical Marine range, normally chapter specific as well, and how to incorporate that into your Primaris Marines, which I in a way it's like it's counterintuitive from the rules, because obviously Primaris Marines have specific models, tactical Marines have specific models. They don't really cross over in terms of having a Primaris Marine with a tactical Marine loadout and playing it as a tactical Marine. It's like, yeah, you can do that, and I think that's encouraged, but the rules aren't designed to do that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's this weird dichotomy, and it's the same issue I'm having in terms of trying to create a Black Templars army of, do I go pure Primaris Marines, or do I go tactical Marines, or Crusaders, which is a variant of tactical Marines, but create them out of Primaris Marines? Because ultimately, I think a lot of the old tactical Space Marines look a bit dinky and a bit small, so I would want them all to be Primaris scale, even if they're not actual Primaris models within the rules. So I think there is that flexibility of creating stuff and kit bashing it, but they don't really talk about it as much as they used to in like codexes and stuff. I think in the Age of Sigma stuff they do that a little bit more.
They reference it as a designer note actually in Codex Chaos Knights, because obviously the Chaos Knights Codex requires you to use various knights that aren't actually predominantly made from the Chaos Knight kit. So they actually do reference it at the start of there. They say the War Dogs and the other variants are all based on these kits, and that you need to essentially use those or kit bash those to get the desired results. So they do actually surprisingly reference it more and more, it seems, in some of the literature. I also think as well, in the Astra Militarum book, they actually highlight a few other kit bash variants as well.
So they've got some custom regiments that people have kit bashed. They don't tell you how they kit bashed them. They just sort of say, here's a regiment and it's got a certain name. And you can, I don't know if they even list the parts. I can't remember if they do, but I remember in corresponding White Dwarf that came out when the Astra Militarum Codex came out, they were like, here's how you make a custom regiment and here's how you kit bash them.
Normally those custom guard regiments are made from a mixture of Cadian, Skitari and Gene Sealer cult stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So like a 10-man squad costs you about 50 quid.
But yeah, it's pretty insane.
The way it should be.
One, Forge World, and units. Yes.
That's how they like it. So, in general, Phil, as a subscriber, are you happy with your subscription? Would you recommend a subscription?
There's still one.
Oh, my Lord, there's another thing, Phil. All right.
What's
next?
So, the next one is a Chaos Demons kill team.
Right,
which is something Joe mentioned in the previous podcast about their absence.
And now they're there.
Yeah, which is quite cool. It's a bit odd that obviously they're not supporting it as an actual boxed release alongside Kill Team, which sort of makes me feel like they're not supporting Kill Team properly by putting it out there as like a box. But it's kind of cool that it's just a free rule in White Dwarf, and I guess they're trying to make White Dwarf a bit more interesting by sort of secreting these rules away within White Dwarf as a way of giving you these rules rather than going, oh, we're going to make it something you got to buy. So in a way,
the idea of them secreting, that's always a good word.
Yeah, and then there's a tiny article at the back, which is like inside the studio. It's like what people are working on and stuff like that. So, and then that's it. So overall, it's pretty good. I'm still not convinced it's necessarily the best it's ever been. Because I do think it's good. Because they've gone to so much effort to cater for everyone, that there is always something for Age of Sigmar, always something for 40k, always something for all the specialist games, which is sort of how it should be. It does mean if you're only into one thing, then you're probably getting less of it. Whereas before it used to be predominantly 40k, but it would be swings and roundabouts. So if there was a new release that was tied to Age of Sigmar, then the majority of the magazine was all Age of Sigmar or all 40k, and sometimes a bit of a middle ground. But now it's so mixed. It's like there's a lot of it that I'll never read, like the Warhammer Underworld stuff, even though I've played it before. It's like I don't really have much time or interest in it anymore. The developer sort of dev diary stuff and the sort of insider scoop in terms of their thought process is always the most interesting thing. And like the jungle article, I'll definitely give that a read because that's really interesting and it's sort of touching on that conversion aspect. And anytime they talk about like, here's how we do green stuff and here's how we kit bash stuff, even though I know how to do all of that, I still find it always fascinating to read just to get inspiration and ideas from them.
You can always learn more. I suppose the thing is, and the rationale for them, though, with the little bit of everything, is that you buy it as Warhammer 40,000 fanboy, and then they go, but look, Age of Sigmar, isn't it pretty? Hey, and you go...
Well, that's true, and that is always tempting whenever you look at stuff, you go, I wouldn't mind building that one day.
Slowly wearing down your resolve, Phil.
Quite likely.
Before you know it, you'll be an Age of Sigmar player. You've already got some Warhammer Underworld stuff, right?
I've got Underworld. I've actually got a small Seraphon army because when Age of Sigmar first came out, I was like, I'm going to get into this.
Yeah.
And I bought some stuff and I spent ages converting a few bits up and then none of you guys got into it. So, and then we ended up going to a 40k. It was like a doubles tournament. So I ended up just painting up some more Krieg stuff. But pretty much every summer I go on a little dalliance of the different systems. So obviously last year I built up my Apostles of Thalos kill team, which I've still not painted up, funnily enough. But
John Blanche will not be impressed.
No, he won't. He'll get there one day, once I get a bit of time.
He hasn't got long left, Phil. Come on. Don't let him down.
I know, that's true.
Apologies for making that blunt and very unfair statement. I know a lot of people love John Blanche, as do I, so I shouldn't really be so flippant about his impending doom. But, we all got to go sometime.
That is true.
Hopefully, he's got many years ahead of.
Well, let's hope so.
Godspeed,
I think the Games Workshop stock will dip dramatically as soon as he's no longer around.
I don't know though, man. He's churned out so much artwork. By the sounds of things, there's just, rooms full of the stuff. I think he's probably done enough artwork to see him through for the next 100, 200 years.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah. He is fantastic as well, isn't he? I mean, goddamn, when you watch him on these podcasts, or you hear him in interviews, or you just follow him on social media, as I do, he's a wonderful boy. Very enjoyable to watch.
I think that's also the other interesting thing about White Dwarf is it now has to straddle alongside the Warhammer community team.
Yeah.
So now in White Dwarf, you tend not to get here's what the new releases are coming out, because you've already seen it for a month at least by the time the magazine comes out.
Yeah.
Because Warhammer community would have previewed it and done like full in-depth articles on it. And there's obviously things like the Stormcast and Boxcast as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's in an interesting place, and it's cool that the White Dwarf is now officially part of the design studio. So everything is canon in terms of like the rules and the lore. It's not a sort of side thing being done by people just working on the magazine. It's like everything in there's official. So, if you want to play Blood Ravens, you can take that to a tournament, and those rules aren't like just homebrew suggestions. They're official 40k rules in the same way that a codex would be, which is great, and that never used to be the case.
I think as well, though, the White Dwarf of old used to be as focused on educating you on the hobby as it was a trade publication as well, right? Because it used to have listings for all the stores. It used to have, like product numbers and things like that for like new ranges. Good old
mail order right at the very end as well.
Yeah. So it was always sort of, again, it sort of served two functions, I suppose. It was as much a trade publication for stockists and other things, as much as it was a customer facing, and it was very much a sort of B2B and B2C proposition in the early instances. I mean, my favourite period for White Dwarf is always the early years from my childhood, because obviously nostalgia is strong, but I did used to love some of the character and actual kind of production that they used to put into the battle reports. I think my worst period for White Dwarf was when they started going back to doing battle reports, but again, the games were based on the weird, airy-fairy times of Games Workshop, where they were like, we don't need to try and balance this or come up with anything. We're just chucking games together and see what happens. And they did it on the realm of battle boards, but they didn't kind of like dress the table up especially nice. They just sort of did it as a normal 40k table with normal-looking armies with very underwhelming photography, which was always a bit sort of I can't remember when that was. It was like 5-6 years ago. I think at the moment it's in a good place. I'd keep buying it because of the rules, I suppose, more than anything. I mean, if there's an issue with a 40k rule set in it, I'll buy it. If there isn't, I won't. But I do also think it's quite frustrating for some people because, I think, Joe, you told this story the other day, didn't you, where someone came into your shop, the good people of Triple Helix. They came in and they said, can I buy the Assassins and the Assassins book? To which Joe went, yes, they're there. No, you can't have the book because it doesn't exist and you can't get it on back order because it was a too popular issue.
Well, interestingly, what you can do, though, is you can buy the EPUB edition, because someone online was having that very same debate about how you can't buy the back orders. And some issues you still can get back orders for. But they do digital editions now of everything as well. So at the very least, you can get like an EPUB PDF type version of it.
Well, I sort of stole Joe's story. So, Joe, what was your experience of that customer?
He was a bit like, I don't know what to do now then. And I was like, well, there is Battlescribe, which is free, and you can go and use that, which is what everyone else, but you won't get the stratagems. And I didn't know about the EPUB thing, although my general experience of EPUB books and stuff hasn't been great. I always think they're really bad.
You can buy it on the magazine stand on your iPhone as well. The whatever the ebook thing is, or e-magazine option. They do have it on newsstand or whatever it's called now.
Are e-magazines cheaper than the normal magazine itself?
You know what? I don't know. Let's see if we can find out.
Absolutely not, mate.
Yeah.
How much is White Dwarf normally? $5.99.
Yeah.
So on iTunes, my guess is it'll be £6.49.
White Dwarf is $5.99.
Oh wow! Okay, they got it 1 for 1, have they?
Why is it the same price?
No, wait, hold on. No, that's the printed version. Let's try and find the digital version.
Go onto your iPhone, Phil, and see if you can find it.
I'm pretty sure you can buy it from the Games Workshop website, I think.
Oh, you used to be able to, but I'm talking about the iPhone variant. Anyway, look, we're going to get off on a tangent here. We'll find out the price in due course. In fact,
an EPUB edition from the Games Workshop website. So, for example, this month's issue is $5.99 as well. So it's the same price.
But they don't have to pay to ship it around the world.
Well, no, but they've got to pay someone to reformat it all and add in links and video and moving stuff. So they do. It's just not. It's not like they're pressing export to a PDF. They do actually add in some extra elements in there. Don't quote me on that, but I thought they did stuff like that in the past. I don't know if they still do that, but it may well be that it's just they're adding in all the links so you can jump around in the content.
Yeah, but that's one guy, and it'll take him, 2 days to do that?
Yeah, those 2 days cost money, mate.
Yeah, but... Nah, it's madness. Madness.
Mate, come on now. You understand how it is.
Well, potentially you're reformatting it for a completely different... so if you look at a magazine, that is not the same dimensions as your iPhone. So they've got a lot of work in terms of... It's effectively redesigning it using all the content but to fit a different format and size.
That doesn't take as much effort as much cost as getting it printed and getting it shipped across the entire world. It's just a couple buttons.
I'll tell you this, as a designer, that actually when it comes to films and music, and in this example, a magazine or digital magazine, the cost of those physical items is negligible. So you're never paying for the physical DVD or VHS tape or whatever format you might be buying in, because that doesn't really cost much. All of that cost is predominantly spent on the designers, the building where they're working in, the electricity and all of that sort of stuff, and the people that make the thing. There's only like less than 5% of it is always only on, the paper or the DVD or whatever, the disc that you buy it on. So that never gets factored in, really.
What about distribution and stuff like that?
Well, it's so minimal, is what I'm saying. Regardless of just
these are lies that designers tell people to warrant the amount of money they charge.
Quite unlikely.
If
anyone does need a digital designer, you can look me up.
Christ, Phil, no, come on now.
I'm just kidding.
In this segment, we've plugged Joe's employer and your services as a designer. This is unbelievable. Don't forget, obviously, Beyond the Tabletop is also available for all your day-to-day hobby needs.
In all good formats, of course.
In all good formats, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, look, long story short, White Dwarf, it's all good, lovely fun. Should we just talk about Blood Ravens.
Blood Ravens,
Scorpions. Blood Ravens and move on with this segment, because I feel like we've laboured the point.
Yeah.
Are Blood Ravens good? Joe?
Yes and no.
Brilliant. What a fantastic roundup. Why are they good?
They're good because they're incredibly resilient against high-strength weapons with because their chapter tactic is basically you ignore the to-wound rolls of unmodified to-wound rolls of 1 or 2. So if you hit a Space Marine with a melter gun, then those to-wound rolls of 2 aren't going to do anything to him, which is quite nice.
It's a win.
It's a bit of a win, but obviously in that situation, you just shoot them lots with bolt guns and strength 4, strength 5 stuff.
I mean, it's reasonable to say, how often have you found yourself in a situation where something that isn't a character is getting shot by something that would wound it on a 2?
Yeah.
Well, your vehicles, I guess.
I mean, you will be, but I mean, the thing is with this version of the game rule set is most of the things that have high strength and high AP and about 2 damage, which is ideal for killing Primaris Marines, cap out at about strength 7. There's very few things to my recollection that have lots of shots and
Plasma,
strength 8.
like Hell Blasters, I guess.
Yeah, Hell Blasters
Overcharging.
overcharging. So an overcharging unit of Hell Blasters may not be as damaging as they would be otherwise, I suppose. Plus also as well, things like Vindicares. Vindicares would have a fun time, wouldn't they, if they went, and I always wound you on a 2! Except I don't, because your rules. Ah, damn you.
But to wound on a 2, you've got to be strength 8 at least. So, or what auto cannons? Say 7.
7, yeah.
They won't count. Yeah. So it's a very niche thing, with the exception of anything that will give you +1 to wound. So Blood Angels, for example, or is it Death Company only?
No, yeah. All variants of Blood Angels get +1 to wound. Yeah.
So, that would negate theirs, because they would normally be wounding on 2s, and then instead they'd be wounding on 2s. So, Blood Ravens v Blood Angels. I'm pretty sure there's another one that we were talking about earlier that also get +1 to wound.
The real benefit for their rule comes from if you want to do something exotic, like run a dreadnought, like a dreadnought list. So not an army that's going to win loads and loads of tournaments, but would actually be quite efficient against things like knight lists, because like gallants and stuff with their power claw, their power fists and their chainswords aren't going to be wounding you on 2s like they would be normally. But that means you'll have to be looking at dreadnoughts like Contemptors with invulnerable saves, or Leviathan, stuff like that.
Even then, though, I mean, again, you're talking about such a very specific set of circumstances, because again, if you know that you can't win it on 1s and 2s, you kind of just go, well, against a dreadnought, I'm still just going to stomp you to death with these feet, and that'll still get the job done. I mean, here's the thing, right? It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination to be able to ignore 1s and 2s for wound purposes. I mean, obviously you always ignore the 1s because the 1s always fail anyway, but the fact that the 2+ wound rolls don't work on them is okay. The real trick of their trait is the whole that they can re-roll 1s when it comes to psychic tests, which, again, actually makes the notion of doing... If you were looking for just taking a Librarius Conclave, as it was back in the day, of 3 librarians, these are kind of the librarians you're going to take, aren't they? So if you're looking at doing a Librarian Supreme Command detachment, you're probably going to take Blood Ravens. The only and additionally so because they get the Chief Librarian Stratagem, which for 1 command point, by the way, is pretty good, I think. 1 command point to get 1 extra psychic power, to also then be able to deny an additional psychic power. That means your librarian's outputting 3 psychic powers plus denying 2. That's a pretty potent psyker all of a sudden.
He's pretty badass. I always kind of expected them to get like the Thousand Suns thing, where their sorcerers are also like captains at the same time, so they give the reroll 1s bubble.
Yeah, that would have been cool, wouldn't it? If you could have given captain-type rules to librarians, that would have been a winner.
Yeah.
That would have been what you wanted more than this, isn't it?
Yeah, the people I feel sorry for right now are the people who like Blood Ravens, but they painted their army Blood Ravens so they could choose whatever chapter tactics they want, which was normally Raven Guard or like Salamanders or something. Yeah. And now they're stuck with like a subpar.
Well, they're not actually, because the rule says that you can still choose any other chapter tactic or the one below, so you can still do that basically.
Oh, so you can have any chapter tactic and still use this stratagem.
You can have any chapter tactic or the chapter tactic listed below, which is a Blood Ravens Relentless Seeker, which is the thing with the 1 or 2 for wounding and re-rolling 1s. So you can have that or a generic chapter tactic, and I believe that you still get you can still use a stratagem regardless, or the relic regardless.
I mean, the relic, I can't see too many people taking it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's one of the best bolt pistols you're going to get, but, I mean, again, it's the best cardboard straw you're going to find, but no one likes them as much as other things.
Well, should we clarify what it is? So it's a 12-inch range pistol, 2 strength 5, -3 AP, and 2 damage.
Very, very good. I mean, it's for the sake of a free relic, amplifies a free or majoritively free weapon, because the bolt pistol never costs you any points normally, or it may cost 1 in certain circumstances, but most of the time the bolt pistol ain't costing you anything. Based on that, you know, that's a pretty good bolt pistol for as bolt pistols go. But I mean, again, it's still only range 12. It's not going to necessarily do a huge amount for you, but you could find it working in very specific situations. So yeah.
You'll only see it used by people in like low point fun games, like they're doing like 50 power level or 500 points, like 600, 750 kind of thing. It's a quick game. And they're like, oh, I'm not going to go hardcore. I'll just chuck in any old relic. I'll take this bolt pistol.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So there's that, and then they didn't get a specific warlord trait, did they? They just got the Rights of War warlord trait for Gabriel Angelos, or rather, Gabriel Angelos has to take the Rights of War warlord trait, but they didn't get a warlord trait, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the topic of Gabriel Angelos, I mean, he's a bit of a beast. I'll be honest, I'm not 185 points. I don't know what he was before. I feel like he was cheaper.
No,
I think he was like 200.
Oh, was he? Okay, fine. Well, he's cheaper now then. I mean, he's pretty solid, though. I mean, again, if your Blood Ravens can take different chapter tactics, so you can still take salamanders and other things, then this is still a good option for your army. But I do believe Gabriel Angelos used to be able to take any warlord trait. You didn't used to have to get a specific one. He used to be able to take whatever one you wanted. And I think most people used him with Storm of Iron, the one where you get the +1 to your, or -1 to your AP every time you roll a 6 to hit, I believe. Or
Storm of Fire, it was called. But yeah,
Storm of Fire.
And loads of aggressors.
Yeah. I mean, Gabriel Angelos does hit like a truck, right? I mean, he's a pretty beastly guy. The fact that he's got the melee variant, or rather, sorry, the Mighty Strikes variant of the God Splitter, where he's ×2 strength, -3, flat 3 damage, and when resolving attacks made with this profile, subtract 1 to hit, and wound rolls of 6+, inflict 1 mortal wound, is pretty good. Although, again, here's the funny thing about rolling a 6+, if you're -1 to hit, do you ever roll a 6+? Oh, to wound. Fine. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Fine. There you go. That's the clarification there. So you can do that, which is nice.
But the reason you're going to take him is for the re-rolls. So you re-roll hit rolls, not re-roll misses. So he's got the good one, as it were.
Oh, yeah. He's got the good variant, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That is good. All right. Fair enough. I mean, he's good. I like him. I like the model. Although I don't necessarily, again, it's got one of those weird Forge World faces that needs a little bit of attention. Like, they need to put a helmet on that. But yeah, no, I like it. And I also like Leap into the Fray. I think, being able to charge in and on a 4+ doing D3 mortal wounds is pretty funny. The fact he's got Teleport Strike is also another win. So yeah, I mean, again, he's pretty reasonable. I think my consensus on Blood Ravens, especially now that Phil has pointed out to the fact that you can still use other chapter tactics, is that I think they're pretty reasonable. I think, they're all right. You've got access to a nice special character who will... He's not... I don't know, is he probably... Actually, to be fair, as chapter masters go, he's probably one of the best ones, actually. I know this sounds mad now, coming off the back of being relatively lukewarm, but that's chapter masters for you. I mean, you compare this to a 200-point Marnius Calgar, I kind of think this guy's got the edge.
Yeah, there's a weird thing. Like it's mainly the Forge World chapter masters that actually come off quite good. Like him and Moloch is quite good. I'm a bit sad that he's got a -1 to hit with his Thunderhammer, because there are other people with Thunderhammers that don't have minuses to hit. And I think, like, if you're a chapter master in Terminator armor, that shouldn't be a thing.
True, but then most people with Thunderhammers don't have the option to turn it into a sweeping blow variant that gives him an additional 3 attacks, giving him 8 attacks, which is pretty solid.
Oh, that's fair enough, yeah.
And the fact that you can get 8 attacks and potentially do D3 mortal wounds, I mean, it can make him a pretty good option even for chucking him into a horde.
Yeah.
Have you noticed in general there's a bit more of a trend for upping the number of attacks of close combat units? So like the assassins and the knights and stuff, and even this guy, like they've always given you if you're stuck against hordes, here's a way to increase your number of attacks dramatically, just to kill chaff. It seems like that's a thing they're doing now for close combat units.
I think if you were to refer back to previous episodes, you may remember me getting a little bit irate about the combat phase within 8th edition, and a lot of that was related to the relative lack of damage that was caused within the combat section. So I always remember, like, Dante gets into combat, doesn't really do a great deal when he gets there. He's got like 6 attacks, and inevitably he misses one of them, but yeah, okay, he re-rolls it, but then miraculously somehow he misses it anyway, so he gets like 5, and then he wounds on 2s because he's Dante, but again, doesn't re-roll those, and miraculously finds himself doing 4 wounds. And because his axe, I think, is only like -3, but the thing he's fighting's somehow got an invuln or something. He kills like 3 things or whatever it is, and you go, "Way, that's a 200-something plus character that I had to really painstakingly get across the board to get into combat, and when I finally got him there, killed 3 things. Yeah!" And I think that's the fundamental issue with 8th edition, as I've said on multiple occasions, is its combat mechanics as it concerns melee are atrocious. And I think the thing is that, as I said before, Dante should have 12 attacks, and even then it's not enough within this system. Combat's terrible, and they need to increase the amount of attacks to even justify the, trying to balance it. I like the addition of things like doing mortal wounds when you leap into combat, because at least that then gives you a little bit of an extra edge. But yeah, the way that 40k 8th edition seems to work is either you're a unit that can bog people down, or you're a unit that can kick the crap out of big scary things. So you're either an Imperial Knight or Captain Smash, or you're a unit of Orc Boys that just has loads of bodies and loads of attacks as a result, or you're something else. Like there's just, again, you kind of, we've talked about this before, Phil. I think even you highlighted it as a point. You need to make weapon skill a variable stat that has a relation to each other, and you need to bring back something like the initiative step to give another stat to give back the elite status of your elite warriors. Because at the moment, everything's the same, and it's just like... And I think the real problem is going to be... I don't know as a design team, other than doing special rules, what they're going to do when they eventually bring back... Rogel Dawn or Russ or Lionel Johnson or whoever they bring back to make him noticeably different from Gilliman, because it'll pretty much be like the same stat line and a few extra rules. But, fundamental elements of those rules will probably remain, such as he's also a Primarch, so all Dark Angels reroll hits and reroll wounds. And then what do you do beyond that? And that's one of the weird things about 8th edition, is there's not enough subtle nuances within their stats to create differences. It's just a game of big numbers, and I think as time goes on, that's where we'll go with combat and attacks. Like you said, I think we'll start getting to a point where they go, "Oh, actually, we kind of need to start making our combat characters have a minimum of like 7 attacks, because actually, they're not good enough as they is." But even that's not good enough, really, for what you're paying for it.
What they need to do is do the Age of Sigmar allow wounds to carry over in combat. So if you've got some, like, I don't know, like a Gabriel Angelos with a damage-free Thunderhammer running in and hitting 4 times, wounding 3 times, and you fail 3 saves, that kills 9 people, because he's just, like, slugged them across the table. And maybe that's a way of looking at it. Because, yeah.
That is the fundamental thing, isn't it? And it's interesting what you raise, because actually the core of the 40k rules, as much as they've kind of bolted back on so much of the old edition's rules, it's still fundamentally Age of Sigmar with a few extra little bits. And that's always been the core of the weirdness of 40k 8th edition, is it's still sort of just Age of Sigmar with a few extra bits thrown back on. I mean, and I know some people listening to this will be like, "What are you talking about? It's nothing like Age of Sigmar." It isn't anymore, because they've kind of managed to layer enough of the old stuff back onto it. I mean, it's amazing how far we've come in the last few years of 8th edition to almost transition it. It's funny. It's like it's going through a regression. It's like we're going back to 7th edition. It's like, oh yeah, well actually, we want to put this in, or we want to put this in. Yeah, sure, there's no formations and there's no terrible codexes and so on and so forth. But the rules, the more and more they look at it, they go, oh yeah, they had a point about how that works. Oh yeah, we didn't think about that. We probably need to go back to doing it like that, or try and do a new version of that, or something to that effect. But anyway, there you go. It's a massive old topic of fun.
No, we seem to have digressed quite a bit. So what's our general thoughts and feelings about the Blood Ravens supplement? Do we think it's good or not? Or a bit in between?
I think their intentions were good, but the exercise was entirely pointless because they negate the whole point of giving them by new rules and chapter tactic by saying, if you don't like this, use a different one instead.
My thoughts are all the fluff and lore stuff. Yeah, whatever. Fluff and lore in it. Great. We've got 3 video games worth of that, but cheers for more of it. The 2 pages of rules. The chapter tactic is good in circumstantial situations, i.e. if you're running a Supreme Command detachment of librarians. The Chief Librarian stratagem is thumbs up. Gabriel Angelos is, I'm going to say thumbs up. The relic is it's one of the better bolt gun relics or bolt pistol relics, but it's still a bolt pistol relic, so no one's ever going to take it. And yeah, in terms of running a general Space Marine army, if you're going to run them as Blood Ravens, don't bother using that chapter tactic unless you're using it for your Supreme Command detachment of librarians, because everything else is kind of pointless with it. It's no Crimson Fist, let's put it that way. Crimson Fist I could see some value in. It's middle of the road, unfortunately. Sad times for the Blood
I sort of feel like maybe they could have gone a bit further, because obviously it's still a chapter that is part of the Index Astartes, like it's part of the generic Space Marines Codex, and they've given you literally 1 unit and a special rule or 2 to plug into that. Maybe they could have gone a bit more all out and done like a whole bunch of stratagems and basically said, yeah, take the units from Space Marine Codex, but you can't use any of the stratagems, or maybe you can use some, but actually here's a ton of extra ones to use, so it is a bit more themed and a bit more unique.
I also think they could have done a rule where they said that they can take any relic from any chapter, because one of the weird things about the Blood Ravens, for those who've actually played the Dawn of War games, is they've got relics from all over the shop. Like, they've got relics that they have absolutely no right having. So they've got.
They're sort of renowned for stealing, I guess.
Yeah, that's their thing. They've got like relics from like Rogal Dawn. Like they've got like some sort of hammer from Rogal Dawn or something. And they've got other things, and it's like, yeah, they've got relics from all over the place that they probably shouldn't have. Which obviously in video game realm, it was easy enough just to give them any old thing from any old piece of lore. But when you actually start applying that to the game of Warhammer 40,000, you start going, well, actually, why would they have that very specific Blood Angel relic? Is it because they're a Blood Angel successor chapter? No. They just nicked it. It's like, okay. So if they had literally just gone, you can take any relic from the Space Marine Codex, that might have been a nice little addition to them as well. Something to give them a little, like, instead of giving them a new relic, just saying just take any of the relics. Like, you can take anything you want, which could have been interesting. But yeah, middle of the road, I'd say. Middle of the road.
Cool.
Right, then. I reckon that pretty much wraps up this long chat about White Dwarf in July. Hopefully you've all found this insightful and or interesting. If not, please don't tell us, because, you know, we want so much to be loved and don't want any negativity. But obviously, if you feel that strongly about it, share your opinions. Again, very sorry to, for the comments made about Mr. John Blanche. Didn't mean to, put that thought in people's minds. Hopefully we can all understand and take that in the good humour it was intended. You're not too angry at me, Phil, are you?
Well, I will survive and live on.
There you go.
Maybe that's a bad pun.
Well, exactly. You made it worse for us. Joe, what is your closing thoughts on White Dwarf and all the associated things?
Let your friend buy it, read it in 40 minutes, never pick it up again.
And with that, we will do the transitional noise. Woo! Here we go again, everybody. We're going to be talking about some Warhammer 40,000 Grand Tournament Heat 2 action, and I'm joined by my illustrious pal, the mighty Tim. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. Thank you for inviting me on the show yet again.
It's all right, Tim. You are somewhat of a regular, if you will.
Yeah. I feel like I represent the lower spectrum of the 40k tournament community. Absolutely. I feel like there's a need for that in this podcast.
It's true. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, we have, not that Phil is by any, respects a poor quality player, and neither are you for that matter. But Phil certainly kind of leans more in that kind of direction. Joe is very much the happy tryhard, and then Richie has very real potential also, and then there's me, who's obviously great in every single way, shape, or form. Well, I hate to sell that stuff because, I'm nothing at all incredible in any way, shape, or form on the grand stage of things. I mean, I consistently do okay, but compared to the current top dogs of Warhammer 40,000, I'm not even in that conversation. So it is what it is. But regardless, within our small little community, our small little commune, I guess there you go. Big up me and all of my fun. But what have you been up to lately, though, Tim? Why haven't you been joining us on the podcast lately? You've been doing other things with your life and fun?
Yeah, just life just been getting in the way, really. To be honest, I keep on flipping. I know, that damn life and work. I keep on flipping from one idea to the other, and nothing's really sticking. Like, I get really excited, and then some time passes by, and I do a little bit of hobby on projects I'm trying to catch up on, and then I sort of lose the whim, as it were. Man.
You have a lot to think about when you're doing a 20-mile bike journey every morning and then subsequently every evening, right? I mean, that I could only imagine the amount of ideas that would flow in and out of my head as I was riding a bike for an hour and a half in the morning and then subsequently the evening.
Funny you should say that. I actually do think about hobby ideas when cycling.
Of course you do. Don't think about it too much, though, mate, because otherwise you might run a red light and find yourself in a perilous situation.
Well, this is it. I actually try and be a good cyclist. I'm going to put on my cyclist hat here. As a current road user as well, I try and always be considerate and sort of let people go and not jump lights and stuff and all the stuff that cyclists do to give them a bad name. That's
true. I mean, I have heard and seen examples of poor quality cycling out there in the world. But I can only imagine you adhere to the utmost, standards when it comes to all these things.
I try.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, quite controversially, when you attended Grand Tournament Heat 3 back in December of 2018, you took the Tyranids, and with the Tyranids, you won 1 game, 2 games?
No, I got 1 draw.
1 draw.
1 draw.
But subsequently, you received 4 favourite army votes and 5 favourite game votes, which regrettably didn't get you, obviously, a Knight of the Inner Circle award, which would have been a fantastic and worthy award for a man of your, gaming caliber. But you've quite controversially decided that you're trying to kind of up your game with a army list. Sorry, I couldn't think of the words there. An army list entirely comprised of Craftworld Eldar. Is that not correct?
That is correct, sir. I thought I'll try something a little bit different and expand on my draw and hopefully get 1 win.
There you go.
Heading for those lofty heights of stardom. But I'm just trying to... It's another well-rounded list. I feel like I gravitate towards well-rounded lists just because I like to have I wouldn't say an answer for everything, but I don't want to feel like, I'm only really active in one phase and that's it. Yay. Fun game for me.
Well, exactly. I mean, are you not in any way concerned, I suppose, with the army list that you're taking that, instinctively and, without spoiling what's in it, elements of what you're taking are still objectively good aspects of the Craftworld list, and as such, do you feel... I mean, again, not that this is really a sensible strategy or thing that you can ever really bank on, but, do you feel that had you come back with your Tyranids that you may have possibly been able to have achieved that Knight of the Inner Circle status, or is that not really something that concerns you? Because let's be honest with ourselves, that's such a bizarre, unlikely set of circumstances to come to pass, even though you were incredibly close to achieving it. I mean, so yeah, this, because I don't know, the thing as I've recognised as being a Craftworld player is that you always come to the table on the back foot. Like, you really got to win people over when you turn up with Craftworld Eldar. So yeah, what's your feelings on that? Do you feel that this is somewhat destined for the mid-table, and are you happy with that, or what's the thinking?
I'll be happy if I get to the mid-table. Like, aiming for like the Knight of the Inner Circle, as you said, you kind of need the stars to align, and I don't think that's totally impossible, but it's a pretty hard task. I'm not going to do it with this Eldar army. I'm going to try and use my charm to win as many people over. You
got to use your charisma.
I am literally maxing out my charisma.
There
I am like stat 10 if we're going by like Fallout, and then I'll just put on some fancy clothes and make it like stat 11. Anyway.
I mean, mate, if you turned up in some kind of snazzy suit, I think you could, take it to 11, potentially.
I think I could.
If you got like one of those, like, mirror shine disco suits or something, that could be good.
Just turn up like Disco Stew.
Yeah, man, that's the way. Although Disco Stew does not advertise, but but nonetheless, yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting because I think, again, it's funny because me and Phil came away from the doubles tournament that we did at Warhammer World not too long ago, and that was a Throne of Skulls doubles, which is a whole different world of gaming, because regardless of the fact that we won all 5 games, we didn't come anywhere close to... I mean, we came 5th or 8th or something, somewhere between 8th and 5th. I can't remember the particulars.
You were up there.
We were up there, but the thing is that it didn't matter that we won all 5 games. It just mattered randomly what people thought of us. And obviously, because it was still associated to the structure of a tournament, people didn't like losing to us because wins and losses mattered to them, yet in the grand scheme of things were entirely irrelevant, because actually favourite game votes and favourite army votes win the day. But it's difficult to win favourite army votes, or rather favourite game votes, when you're beating people, because, certainly in that environment I found that people were really not up for losing, even though that, as it transpired, the losses meant nothing. And that was a really weird place to be. And it's like you said, the guys who won that overall, I mean, not to say they were bad players or bad guys, it's just that thing. It was just, they just happened to be the people that everyone liked playing, and that's kind of how it was won. And again, Phil was like, well, maybe we shouldn't have tried so hard to win, and, maybe if we had, throttled back or not taken Captain Smash or done this, maybe we could have won the overall event. And I'm like, well, mate, you'll never know. I mean, the guys who won it had no idea they were going to win it. They just happened to do it, and that's just how it went. It's just random happenstance. That's the nature of these things. And it's like you say with or as I'm saying, on the Knight in the Circle side of things, although you probably would stand a good chance of getting close to that again if you took the Nid army that you took last time. Is that going to be a satisfying weekend for you, showing progression and getting better at the game and so on? I don't imagine it would be.
No, not really, because I'll just be playing the same army again. And if I was going to take the Nid army, I would obviously have to change it, but it would be leaning more towards like a Horde army to make it even competitive. And let's face it, playing a Horde army is not necessarily fun either.
It's stressful.
It's a really fine balance.
Yeah.
So.
Especially within a 2.5 hour format, you're really up against it all of the time with that stuff, which is, high stress for sure. Yeah,
and it's something I don't really want. Like, I always aim to give my opponents like a good tactical game, because I appreciate that obviously the majority of other people there are there for the tournament aspect of it. Like, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, as you mentioned, in the Throne of Skulls, it's more supposed to be like laid back and fun kind of thing. So, yeah, I am wary of that too, and I don't want to be that guy who's like not intentionally taking ages to move his army or like cock up on the rules. It's just something I'm just a bit sort of conscious about.
Yeah, no, I understand that, mate, and that's but that's a good way to be. If you're not comfortable playing that kind of army in the appropriate time frame in which you're able to play it, then you shouldn't play it. And I think that's the thing. It's like, I played a guy in the Grand Tournament Finals who was running an Orc army, and we concluded the game on his at the end of my turn free. So I got my full turn free in, but of the 2.5 hours in the game, I estimate I had about 40 minutes total. Everything else was him, and it wasn't that he was a bad guy or that he was mucking around with it, and it did result in a loss for him because of this kind of unfortunate slow playing that he ended up accidentally finding himself doing resulted badly for him. But it was because he just hadn't practiced running 200 orc boys in a 2.5 hour time slot, and it just was like the game just got away from him, and it was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. And to be fair to him, he was really cool about it at the end because he went, well, you've won. I mean, if it went on another turn, maybe I would win, but I can't complain because I've taken the bulk of this game to get to this loss, which is on me. Which I kind of really appreciated at the time because I felt like, good on him, at least he acknowledged where he was at and where those issues kind of came about. But at the same time, he didn't look like he was having a great time frantically trying to, make sense of what he was doing. And yeah, so there you go, games and stuff. So let's talk about your Craftworld Eldar Azayayari army list. So,
all right.
Is there one prevailing Craftworld that you're taking, or have you taken a mixture of Craftworlds?
No, it is just one.
Ooh.
Trying to be that good guy.
It's Eltok, right? You're taking Eltok.
No, I'm not.
What?
No, not even Sam Hine either.
Not even Sam Hahn?
Oh, no.
What
I'm
is this
taking
madness?
Ulfway.
Of course it's Ulfway. The great Craftworld of old.
The ones that are the emos of the Eldar, I think they are.
Well, exactly. Which can only mean one thing, that you're obviously running Aldred Ulfran.
Obviously.
There you go.
Obviously, without a doubt. So it's 2 detachments. You've got 1 battalion and 1 spearhead. And then, so running through the battalion, you've got a normal autarch with a Starglaive and the Phoenix Gem for a relic. And he's the non-jumpy one. Then you've got, for the second HQ, a Warlock with a Singing Spear for points. And then after that, to fill out the battalion requirement, you've got 3 squads of 10 Guardians, each with a heavy weapons platform, and that is the Scatter Laser. I know. And then you've got 5 Wind Riders with Shuriken Cannons, a Hemlock, and then 3 Wave Serpents with Shuriken Cannons and Twin Shuriken Cannon.
Crikey.
Yeah, it's not bad. And then for the spearhead...
Any other upgrades on those Wave Serpents? Vectored engines? Anything like that?
No, I'd love to, but I just couldn't fit it in points-wise.
Okay, fair enough.
The having... Is it the -1 to hit if they...
Advance, yeah. Which
that
is
would
pretty
be quite
big.
tasty. Yeah, definitely.
But being Ulfway, they all inherently get the 6-up Feel No Pain, though, right?
Yeah. So the Spirit Stones on the Hemlock are a bit of a loss, but oh well.
Yeah, that was always the weird conundrum I always felt with Hemlocks when I've used them. I've always kind of prioritised taking them as anything other than Ulfway because, again, it's similar when you take Centurions as Imperial Fists. It's like, oh, Centurions, ignore cover. Imperial Fists, ignore cover. So you're like, oh, well, why am I paying points for that privilege when I just get it as part of my, Craftworld trait or chapter tactic in the case of Imperial Fists. And it's always a mindset thing, but I guess unless you're then able to take free flyers or another solid detachment of a thing, then it doesn't really make an awful lot of sense trying to shoehorn it in, does it?
No, not at all. So then finishing off the spearhead detachment, you got good old Eldrad Ulfran.
Is he your warlord, by the way, or is the
no? Sorry, my Autarch's the warlord. This is so I can just throw Eldrad around and be annoying.
What was your Autarch's warlord trait?
I haven't actually picked one. that is something I need to do.
That's something to come up with. I mean, based on what you're saying in terms of like the detachments and things that you're kind of looking at, I mean, and also the fact that you gave him the Phoenix Gem, it probably wouldn't hurt to give him, I can't remember what it's like, Seer of shifting things or something. Basically, the thing that gives him an extra wound and ignores wounds on 6s is probably not a bad shout, because I think actually that then Oh, now I'm thinking, does that stack with Ulfway to make it a 5? I can't remember if there's a thing about it stacking. I don't imagine that's the case. But the extra is quite good. Actually, yeah, no, because Ulfway, ooh. Well, maybe something else. I, now that you've said it, I'm not even sure. Maybe you could give him the Ulfway ability, Warlord trait, that at the start of each battle round, or each turn, you roll a d6, and on a 6 you generate an entirely fresh new command point. Yay!
But would that not clash with the Path of Command?
Only if you're successful with a Path of Command, yes.
Ah, that's true.
But, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's just extra
double
rolls.
Chance.
Double chance, double bubble. I don't know if he needs to be on the table. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
A Warlord trait that will give him something, but really... This is the thing with Ultarks, and I had this conversation when I took... Storm of Blades or whatever it was on my one of my Ultarks at one point, and people were like, "Why did you take that?" And I have to be honest, I didn't really entirely know at the time what I did. I just sort of did, but the point is like I don't really care, because actually the only thing I need is the Path of Command. The Path of Command is like the Warlord trait for becoming a Warlord, but it's also sort of what you would want anyway, and then the rest of it's just kind of extras, I guess. But anyway, we digress. So what's in this spearhead other than Eldrad?
So after Eldrad, you've got just 2 Dark Reapers with an Exarch, and he's got the Tempest
squads,
Launchers.
is it?
No, just 2.
Oh,
just 2 Dark Reapers and an Exarch.
So a 3-man Dark Reaper squad.
Yep, minimum. And then 2 Fire Prisms.
The 2 Fire Prisms. You're rocking the Fire Prisms. That's good to see.
Yeah, well, I need something to combat the Knights. That's probably one of my biggest fears.
Have you put crystalline targeting matrices on the Fire Prisms?
No.
Oh, really? No targeting matrix?
No.
Honestly, mate, I would recommend... I mean, it depends how... You probably already own the model for it, but if you could take a Singing Spear off of your... If you could take a Singing Spear off of your Warlock, it would be worth putting a targeting matrix on at least one of those. Because the targeting matrix is 5 points, but it means that your heavy weapons ignore the -1 to shoot debuff if you're shooting at the closest target, which can be useful.
Okay.
But again, that's just food for thought, mate. You know.
Yeah. Definitely something to think about. The reason being is, I just need something to take on the Knights, which I'm kind of scared about, because I know they're the gatekeeper army, and if you're a seasoned tournament player, you know how to deal with Knights, and it seems all so obvious, but for someone like me, it's a bit like I've come across them a few times, and I have the general idea on how to deal with them, but
Yeah, the thing that's going to be really interesting in the Knight matchup isn't so much the Imperial Knight matchup, because I think we've all kind of data mined that to the nth degree. I think the thing that's going to really throw a fly in the ointment is going to be the Chaos Knight side of things, because the thing about the Chaos Knights isn't so much about what the Chaos Knights bring to the table, it's what they unlock for the rest of the Chaos faction. Because, for example... prior to the release of the Chaos Knight books, one of the more popular builds for Chaos was to take hordes of Plague Bearers with a few Bloodletter bombs, right? And that was relatively points efficient and things. But the real kind of like sting in the tail of that list was obviously the Bloodletter bombs, but also there would always be 3 Demon Princes. Now, the thing with the Demon Princes in the Horde list is that they were relatively anchored by the existence of this horde, because the horde was quite slow, and because obviously you don't want to overextend with your Demon Princes early doors, you found yourself in situations where essentially you wanted to keep your Demon Princes behind your battle lines, I suppose, as you could call it. And what that meant as an Elder player is you could still kind of control the ranges, control the distances, and pick away at them until you opened up an opportunity to destroy the Demon Princes. The thing about Chaos Knights, and what Chaos Knights bring to the table, is obviously they're an incredibly mobile force that will still protect these Demon Princes, and then also these Demon Princes will be able to deny the Witch, and they will make a mess of Eldar flyers, and this is where the game is going to get super interesting now for the Eldar armies, because, you know, the thing that beat Knights for Eldar was the combination of Jink and Doom. But the thing about Jink and Doom is whenever we were up against Imperial Knights, we never had to worry about, you know, perils of the warp or being denied our powers. I mean, okay, fair enough, you wouldn't always succeed, but there was always a very good chance that you would get both off, and then when you did so, the Imperial Knights just fell over dead. The thing is with Chaos Knights is you're going to have lots of deny, and then you've got lots of other weird tricks, like the ability to amplify the damaging impact of perils and other stuff that's going to make that stuff really threatening. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see, and this is something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, is what does my army list that I'm bringing along to Grand Tournament Heat 2 do in these instances where people start running 3 Demon Princes, 1 big Chaos Knight and a couple War Dogs, and then still take Bloodletter Bombs, or potentially take long-range firepower in the form of Iron Warrior Havocs, or whatever they kind of bring to the party. And, you know, I think, yeah, Chaos Knights are the riddle to be solved, but in terms of if you come up against an old school, I have to use the old air quotation marks there, if you come up against an old school Imperial Knight army with the Loyal 32 and the Knights and so on, yeah, Doom and Jink all the way, mate. That's how you get that done. And obviously Eldrad is super good at pulling those tricks off, those spells off, and that's the killer. And then all of a sudden, that 5-up invuln goes to a 6-up invuln that rotates up back to a 5. But then their 3-up save goes down to a 4-up save, and then you blast them with 4 Fire Prism shots alongside a bunch of Shuriken Cannon shots and a bunch of just regular Shurikens as well, because Doom is so powerful because you're re-rolling all those wounds, and you'll just through weight of numbers just take it down. Because if you buy some, and it's not even that particularly hard to do, if you get all 30 of those Guardians within range of 1 Imperial Knight, they're almost take it down to half wounds on their own with the combination of Jink and Doom in effect, because he's got a 4-up save and you're winning on 6s, and every wound you do takes him to his invuln, so then he's got to rotate against even the Guardian shooting at it. So he's got a 5-up invuln if he gets wounded, and then you've got something like 60 shots, you know, which you're re-rolling to wound on. So you'll probably find you do a lot of damage to him. So Imperial Knights in the traditional sense aren't too scary. I think the things that are going to cause us Eldari players problems now is, of course, the Chaos Knights. But there you go, I've sort of stole your thunder there. So what's the strategic thinking, and you know, how do you envision dealing with things like Imperial Knights? What's your strategy there?
My strategy is probably going to be the same as last time. I either ignore them, which would probably be a big mistake.
Yes, it would be.
And then try and take out the Loyal 32, as it were, or just go, all right, then just pile everything into it, and try and take one out a turn, and then see what my army survives, because they can just output so much damage to a toughness 3 army.
Oh yes.
Ridiculous. And the 1 in 6 chance is only going to do so much. Yeah. So it's what I have found, like playtesting this army, is getting used to things running away. That is a new concept to me.
Yeah.
Being a NID player, it's like, oh yeah, things get scared.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nuanced thing with Eldar, especially if you've got a lot of Guardians, because Guardians are predominantly, if not exclusively, leadership 7, which isn't a particularly high leadership characteristic. You know, and yeah, that it's not ideal. I mean, I think the thing that's really good about this list, based on what you've got, is you've got lots of good firepower, which is no bad thing, lots of shots and so on, so you definitely can hose down a lot of kind of horde options. You've got a lot of bodies with the Guardian squad, so you can control a good amount of the objectives and a good amount of the board. You're incredibly mobile with those options as well. I mean, when you think when a Guardian squad is exiting a Wave Serpent, they move 3 inches or slightly over 3 inches when exiting the wave serpent itself, so it's like 3.5 because you've got to be within an inch or within 3 inches of the wave serpent. Then you move your 7 plus d6, so you're essentially moving 10 plus d6 inches, which if we boldly assume you get the 6 means that you've got a threat range with that unit coming out of a wave serpent of maths and numbers and things 28 inches, which is still pretty terrifying for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. The that 12-inch range of the shuriken cannon doesn't feel particularly minuscule when you've got a unit that can run around like that.
No, I think the thing I'm going to do this time around is actually make a little cheat sheet for myself.
Yeah.
Just to remember all the little tricks I can do, because there's a lot of things you could do with NIDs, but when I ran them, there wasn't a lot you could do with them because that was out of choice. And as my, I guess, confidence grows with this game, and hence why I'm playing Eldar as well, is just to expand my field and knowledge of other armies. There is a lot more to remember with this army. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, the thing about Eldari, Craftworld Eldar especially, is that they've got so many good stratagems that people don't even realize are there sometimes. So when I was running my Samhan Windrider list, I was getting a lot of mileage out of Runes of Witnessing, and people were like, and you'd be amazed the amount of times people look at you and go, Runes of what? Yeah, Runes of Witnessing. And they're like, what's Runes of Witnessing? Oh, it's 2 command points, and every unit within 6 of my Farseer rerolls 1s to wound. And they're like, what? What's that? What? And it's like, because so many people are used to just dooming a thing, they forget stuff like that's there. And again, something like that for your army, super potent, because all of a sudden you can send Eldred up and then you can offload all these Guardians, and as long as you position them, okay, fair enough, you've got to create a few snaky conga lines in places, but as long as you can position them that Eldred's within 6 of each unit, you're also then re-rolling your 1s to wound with it for the Runes of Witnessing, which is a pretty solid option. You've also got the fact that you've got the Black Guardian stratagem because you're Ulfway, so that you can make one unit of Guardians hit on 2s. You've got the Celestial Shield, which is, again, your Guardian unit can be given, one of your Guardian units can be given a 4-up invuln. You've got Fire and Fade. You've got Lightning Fast Reflexes. You've got Webway Strike. You've got Aerial Assault options, or whatever they're called, the thing where you can put a vehicle out in the thing. I mean, this is the other thing as well, Tim. If you're in a matchup where you're like, oh, don't much fancy being on the board turn 1, 2, and 3, I'm just going to go for the late game kind of hold, you can take your 3 Elder Transports and for 3 command points at the start of the game just be like, cool, I'm not going to deploy them or the units that are in them, and just leave them off the table, because that's a before game stratagem that you can just do as many times before you hit the cap of half your army. Admittedly, I think it's also half the units as well, so if you did that, you'd probably take 6 units out of existence at that point, and then which might be, but even then, even if you wanted to take one of your Wave Serpents with a Warlock and a squad of Guardians and leave it off the table at the start, the flexibility's there. And then you've got Phantasm to redeploy your army, or rather redeploy 3 of your units in your deployment zone. And it's just, there's so much good stuff in that list, man. You got Linked Fire for your Fire Prisms. You've got, I mean, this is the thing, right? There are so many good stratagems in Eldari, and you just have to learn them all. And it's one of the more frustrating books to learn because there's so many good options. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but it's true. It's like, when an army has 1 or 2 clearly defined strategies, it's easy to kind of pick it up and play it because you're like, well, I know what this does and I know what I do to do it. But Craftworld Eldar, it's layered for sure. You definitely need to be on top of it, to say the least.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. I feel like the whole reason another reason I did this army was just so I could put an army together quickly.
It looks great though for as quick as you've done it.
Oh, thanks. Like I did put it together quickly. It's just life got in the way, so I haven't been able to playtest it as much as I would have liked to. But it does feel like one of those armies that I can keep on going back to, and it still be fresh in a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. I mean, have you posted very many pictures of this army on the old Instagram or anything?
No, not yet. I've actually got to do that.
Well, if you can do it before this podcast comes out, what I'll do now is put a link on the screen for those watching on YouTube, and then I will also put a link in the description for your Instagram feed, and then people can see what this list looks like.
Oh, sweet. Yeah,
there you go,
cool.
see? Boom, done.
Boom, done. It's nothing amazing. It's just Billy Basic, but it looks all right for Billy Basic.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understood and can remember, you and I spoke about the list. We came up with the list on a kind of collaboration process. I mean, admittedly, I kind of probably wrote it more than you did, but still, I was like,
yeah, you did. But
and again, to be clear to everyone here, right? Tim's goal when we started writing this list together wasn't that he wanted to run a ultra optimized, top tier, smashy Craftworld army. He wanted something to give him the flavor of everything, right? He wanted a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of the mobility, a bit of the transports, a bit of the flyers, which is what is reflected within this list, right? It's not spammy and it's not super optimized, but it's what Tim wanted, but ultimately, when I was sort of involved in helping out with it, gives him a lot of decent options. You know, I think we weren't ever kind of approaching this as if Tim was going, I must win at all costs, but it was very much a case of, I'd like to be more competitive. Is that about right, Tim?
No. That's pretty much spot on. Like, I'm entering this tournament of just trying to be a better player and think a bit more tactically. And as I say, I'd like to get one win. I'd be happy with a win.
Just one.
Just one win. That's all I want.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm also the kind of guy who's just happy to be there to roll dice, kind of thing.
You would be happiest with the wooden spoon, wouldn't you?
I really would. I actually feel like I deserve the wooden spoon sometimes.
Well, they took that award away in recent tournaments at Warhammer World, which I was, deeply saddened by. But then you're such a likeable fella, you never end up anywhere near the bottom because you get all your favourite game votes, don't you?
This is true. I get bumped up.
Exactly. That's the thing.
There's a flaw in my plan.
Exactly. You got to both be an arsehole and a terrible player to win that wooden spoon, you know. Or maybe they should do it in reverse. Maybe the wooden spoon should be rewarded to the person who loses all the games, but is also the nicest of the losers.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the wooden spoon should be.
I agree.
Shouldn't be an arsehole.
No, absolutely not, mate. That is not the way to do things. But there you go. But yes, so any other particular things that you're not looking forward to facing, or things that you think you need to? I mean, let's approach it this way. What other lists would you be concerned about seeing in this event?
Lists that I'm not familiar with. I haven't really played the Orc Horde yet. That's something I need to come across. Yeah. The Tau gun line is something I also need to come across as well, but also the mobile Tau sort of meta. Where they've got like piranhas. Is it piranhas?
Yeah, piranhas,
Yeah, piranhas and all jumpy kind of things. Although, quite like the sound of that now. Anyway.
Might need to start collecting that.
I might need to do that.
Yeah.
It's along the lines of that, and also the new Chaos Space Marine stuff. I haven't faced any of that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
Oh no, please carry on.
I was going to say, like, I've kept my eye on like various YouTube channels and been watching battle reports, but the kind of person I am, I learn a lot more via doing and interacting. Like, people can tell me, like, until the cows come home, that, oh yeah, it just does this, and this, and I'm there and I'm nodding and I am taking it in, but it just doesn't click until I'm there in the situation doing it, and I'm like, right, okay.
Yeah. No, I understand, mate. In which case, I won't labour the point and come up with a bunch of reasons why, or things to look out for in each list, basically. But the trick with the Orc Horde is the grots. I mean, if you retain anything from this conversation and you come up against an Orc Horde army, be wary of the grots. They are the thing. You may think you want to shoot at something, but what you actually want to do is just kill the grots, because grot shield is a stratagem which is so much fun. Additionally, Looters are the other thing, obviously. Looters aren't as bad as they used to be, but because you can't mob them up anymore, you can only mob up Orc Boy units. But Looters combined with Grots are most frustrating. And then with Tau, the drones, again, same logic. There's, if there's piddly little units that look like they don't belong there because they're not very good, they are definitely there for a reason, and the reason is that they keep the big scary stuff alive. So you need to be wary of the piddly little things as much as the big scary stuff. And then on the chaos side of things, it's chaos, right? I mean, the thing is with Chaos Space Marines is there's some very good options, but very few people, unless someone's unlocked some really clever stuff with Chaos Space Marines, there's not. Mostly now Chaos Space Marines are used in the same way as a kind of Loyal 32 as a bit of a CP battery, so you tend to see people rocking Red Corsairs for command points. I mean, they're all right, but they're not terrifyingly terrifying. Havocs have got some value. Obliterators now are worthless since they increased their points and clarified that stuff, so they're not super good anymore. Any of the Demon Primarchs are scary. But again, you can whittle them down over time.
Going back to the Tau Nugget quickly, because we know they're going to be bringing in the ITC Ruin rules, for the next GT. How does that impact like shield drones and stuff? Because
what it means
you can put them in a ruin.
Yeah, what it means is that the crafty Tau players can put the shield drones in a ruin. And then you can't see them, but they're still within the required range to block the Riptides. So expect to see a lot of people running that Tau strategy because it's really effective.
It's really annoying.
It's super annoying, man. I mean, the thing is, what you got to do with that is you got to kind of use your relative mobility to try and get around it. And it's tough, mate. I mean, I think in that match you kind of need to like bounce from building to building and then try and get to a place where you can get to them. But then also you got to dodge all of the shooting along the way, which is
it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. Tau are super good. And that's really all I can say about that. I think the Tau match is not fun. But then by the same token, the stuff that you'd use to kill the drones is stuff like your scatter lasers on your things, and your shuriken cannons and your shurikens from your shuriken catapults. And the thing is with the drones the stuff that they really, really annoy people about is the big scary shots. So your fire prism, if you fire your fire prism at a Riptide, you may as well use its 2d6 shot or d6 shot variant, the lowest damage variant, and get the most shots, because basically even if you did 100 damage with one shot, that just turns into one 5 up, feel no pain. So if you just just keep shooting at the Riptide, then that's an option. But the problem with that option is that the Riptide is way tougher than a drone, so you're not going to have anywhere near the sort of damage that you want, because you still got to roll against the Riptide's toughness, which is quite annoying. I mean, the addition of the whole bottom floors block line of sight rule is a bit of a pain in the bum. But the thing about the Tau, again, with the exception of the Piranha variant that you were talking about, the thing about Tau that's easily understood is they don't tend to move very much. And also, if someone is running that strategy with a Riptide, you know where that Riptide is for the rest of the game, because again, it ain't going to want to give up that advantage. So you can play around that, but you need to be crafty about it. Like, again, when you come to the board, you kind of need to be like, okay, well, looking at this arrangement, I can see where the terrain is that he's going to want to put these drones, and then I know where the Riptide's going to be, and then I need to, if I'm deploying first, I need to deploy with that in consideration, because I know that he's going to want to put his Riptide there, and that's how you kind of do it, because otherwise, yeah, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Again, like other podcasts have been saying, like sometimes the game is won and lost in the deployment turn.
Really is.
Itself.
Really is. I think the thing with the Tau army is, depending on what they do, you just got to dance around them. That's the thing. Which is easier to do with scatter laser jet bikes than it is to do with units of Guardians and Wave Serpents. But you know, the thing is you've got the durability of the Wave Serpents, and you've got that one Hemlock in there that can sort of get stuck in, but they'll make quick work of that Hemlock, it's fair to say. Yeah, it's a Tower tough, mate. Tower tough.
Yeah.
Orcs are tough. They're all tough. I mean, literally the top kind of 4 lists have all got their scary elements to them. But again, it just concentrate on the mission, focus on that, use your mobility. That's how you win your games. Because that's the real trick of the Eldar army is use your mobility and use your board control.
That's the one thing, like, I'm going to try and focus on this time around is literally just play the mission as much as possible. Deal with what I can deal with.
Yeah, that's the trick, man. But yeah, you will come up against and see some real scary stuff. Also, as well, if Eldrad's not your warlord, and depending on the matchup, I often have used Eldrad as a battering ram, because Eldrad is surprisingly frustrating to things like Tal when you throw him at him, because he's quite hard to get rid of. For an old crusty elf, mostly made of diamond, he's pretty good.
But he's such a magical diamond.
I know, man. I love Eldrad. Like, it's funny when I played one of the guys with my army with Eldrad up at I think it was GT Heat 3. I lobbed Eldrad forwards in the most aggressive way all the time, and I think someone said to me at one point, I've never seen anyone play Eldrad like this. I'm like, whatever, forwards! like, just hurl him at people, because go
Eldrad, go kill him!
Execute! That's always there. Smite, execute, doom, I'm out. And that's the man to a T. I do love Eldrad. I wish we existed in an edition where I could still take Eldrad and get the benefits of Eltok. Admittedly, you can do that with shenanigans, but I love Eldrad. He's my spirit animal, Eldrad. I've been using Eldrad since 2nd edition in almost all my Eldar armies.
So, given the chance, you would identify as Eldrad?
I would, if I could identify, if any character in all of Warhammer 40,000 is synonymous with my 20 plus years of playing, it's been Eldrad. I've had Eldrad in every Eldar army more or less I've done, and that's the thing that hurts me about with what I'm going to be taking the Heat too, because it hasn't got Eldrad in it. I know, and it's super weird getting rid of him, because it feels a bit like, like a bit of a phantom limb, I suppose, in some respects, or whatever. Like, not maybe that, but like, yeah, it feels like losing something. I don't know. I think this pursuit of victory, might come at the expense of trying to use. I don't know. It's one of those things, isn't it? Do I do better with or without him? Oh, of course I'll miss him.
You won't know.
Of course I'll miss him.
Well, but in terms of the games.
Exactly. Will I win? Will I lose? I mean, again, the Chaos Knights are going to really muck that up. Up to 2 weeks ago, I felt really confident that my list could get me the overall win. Now that Chaos Knights exist, I do not feel confident whatsoever.
Maybe you'll have to join the bandwagon and get a couple of Chaos Knights.
I mean, it's still going to happen. I haven't told anyone what's in this list yet, so yeah, I've still got a few weeks to change my mind. I mean, I could do that Chaos Knight list I was telling you about with all the Demon Princes and other stuff.
Could.
Oh, I'd be so good as well.
Bunch of Nurgle stuff, make it super resilient.
Don't tempt me.
You've either got firepower in this game. At the moment, the way I see this game is like you either have tremendous amount of firepower or just survivability. Like those seem to be like the two things that are always creeping around the top tables.
Oh yeah, big time. It's a combination of mobility, survivability, and damage output. But
yeah,
say because clearly that's the stuff that does well. Because if you are both agile, hard to kill, and do a truckload of damage, of course you're going to do well. I think the added element is points efficiency. It's the cheapest version of that gets the best results because, yeah. But again, that's obvious. It seems so obvious to say it when I say it, but there you go.
No, but it kind of makes sense because if you look at custodes, like they are highly mobile, they do a lot of damage output, and they are survivable. But points-wise,
yeah, they're expensive.
They're expensive. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But then Custodes, they still have the edge, mate, because there's still some very, very good Custodes lists out there with all the Forge World stuff doing the rounds, although I don't know whether that's been a bit of a kind of flash in the pan thing, but I think they're still up there for sure. But there you go.
Yeah.
So in closing, Tim, what would you say your prediction is for the outcome of the event? Well, how many wins, how many losses, how many draws?
I'm going to go for 1 win and 4 losses.
Not 1 win and a draw?
Not 1 win and a draw. Because last time, I think I tried to go for 2 wins and I ended up with 1 draw. So I'm going to lowball it and hope to do better.
I think 2 wins are within your grasp. I think you could get 2 wins.
Yeah. Well, if I do, that would be great. But in all honesty, I just want good games and decent and nice opponents.
Yeah, totally.
That's pretty much it.
No, I totally understand that, mate.
I want to have a fun old time and let you guys stress about qualifying.
Well, exactly, mate. Exactly. And it will be a fine weekend, if nothing else.
Oh, so looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Likewise, mate. It's going to be a winner. All right, brilliant. Well, I reckon that pretty much wraps up this segment. Do you have any closing thoughts, feelings, or things you just want to express at this time, Tim?
Everybody's a wonderful person.
Wow. I mean, I'm not entirely sure of the accuracy of that statement, but
yeah,
I can't
take it.
I like the sentiment behind it. Thanks very much as always, buddy. Good to have you
No
again.
worries.
Have you here again. Me. And yeah, hopefully you'll come back and join us soon, right?
Yeah, I will, for definite.
Good, mate. Good. You're so good at it, Tim. You know, such a natural.
Oh, you flatter me, sir.
We always say,
that's why.
You know, you're primed for replacing Joe.
I'm nipping at his heels.
Exactly.
But I feel bad to do that to Joe.
You feel bad for Joe?
No, well, I'll feel bad if I took Joe's spot.
No, you would.
I couldn't do that to him.
No,
I'll just be his happy like little sidekick when he can't step
You'll
up
be
to the
Jabba's little mate, basically.
Oh God. Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, which obviously makes Joe Jabba the Hutt, which is probably not entirely fair.
Well, yeah, but hey, at least he's going up.
Exactly. He's kingpin, isn't he? Good on him.
To be fair, yeah, he's a kingpin. He's now the lord of the underworld.
Exactly, he's done well for himself. That is a good place for him to be. He's done well. Good on him. Anyway, there you go. Thanks very much, Tim. It's a pleasure as always, mate. And yeah, let's move on now to the next segment. As Tim, do you want to give me a transitional noise?
Of course, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 25 of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. Wasn't that Winters CEO? God, I do this all the time. I always get confused. There's a fighting game tournament called CEO. He's SEO. Winters SEO. Wasn't that good, everybody?
It's fantastic.
No, it's lovely. He's a lovely man.
Exactly. What a good boy. And then all that chat about Blood Ravens and stuff, that was all right, wasn't it?
Pretty good.
And what do you reckon about that Tim stuff? Do you think he brought his A game? Do you think he's going to win the whole thing? I mean, he was almost knight at the inner circle last time. Do you think going with Eldari is going to help his odds or hinder him?
Oh, he's lost it now with Eldar.
This is the weird thing, isn't it? Because I sort of said it to him during the process of the recording. I was like, mate, you almost won knight at the inner circle with your Tyranid army. You only lost by like one favourite army vote. Why not double down on that? Because the problem is with his Eldari. Look, I love Tim. He's a great boy. He's a great gamer. He's good fun. He's got mid-table written all over him with that army. Like, because he doesn't play it. Well, no, because he doesn't...
Didn't you write that list for him?
Yes, I did, but it's not like a high-end competitive list. And also, he isn't a high-end competitive player. So I almost feel like he should just double down. You know, double down on the stuff he was good at, being a lovely fellow with a lovely painted army. You know?
That's true.
Because, you know, I think he'd be super chuffed with a Knight of the Inner Circle award. I think he'd come away well happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of those situations of if he doesn't win the tournament, he'll win their hearts.
Yeah, exactly. But I tell you what, though, I'm super happy that Tim's joining us again because I didn't think he'd do it again after the one in December last year. I thought I didn't know how he would react and come away from competitive 40k, and he actually quite enjoyed it. But I think he enjoyed all the pageantry slightly more, the whole staying in the weird sweaty house and all the other stuff that came along with it, which we're not doing this time, actually. We're back in the Holiday Inn, aren't we?
We are indeed.
Oh,
I'm almost a little sad that we're not staying in the creepy house.
Yeah. It was a bit more social.
Yeah, although they did remind me a little bit of Hostel. Like some rich man was going to come in and harvest our organs.
They did have concerningly secure locks, didn't they? It's like one of those things where you arrive there and you go, God, there are a lot of locks on these doors.
Mm. There was also a distinctly small amount of toilets and bathrooms for the number of people that were staying there.
In fact, we only had one, didn't we?
That's my point, yeah. We had the minimum number.
That was an interesting dynamic. I have to admit, when I arrived, I was very much like, I'm not sure I can do this. This does not meet my exceptional standards, but I persevered because it was great fun. You remember we even recorded that really kind of drunk, stupid version of the podcast that I removed after 24 hours of being up because it was like an incoherent mess.
Oh, I do indeed. I never listened to it though.
No. I've still got it on file. Maybe one day I'll re-upload it and see if people enjoy it. But maybe that could be something extra for our Patreons once upon a time. The forgotten episode, the one that existed for all of 24 hours before it got removed.
That seems like a pretty decent idea.
Well, exactly. But that would require a Patreon, as we discussed with Winters, isn't something we're able to do just yet. But one day soon. Let us know. Would you like to give us money? We'd like it if you give us money. Although we're not wanting to beg for money. Although, if you want to give it to us, I mean, I don't know. Joe needs money, don't you, Joe?
I need like a laptop. Like me and Phil do all of this on our phones.
No, speak for yourself. I do it on my laptop, like a normal person.
What?
It's just
You've moved on and left me behind?
I think I recorded on the phone on like the first episode, and that was it.
I thought this whole time you were in the Stone Age with me. But
no,
we're all hoity-toity.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So we need Joe to get a laptop, everybody. Let's get together and get Joe a laptop.
Yeah.
And then, what could we do if Joe had a laptop? Would we be able to film our faces while we record? Wouldn't that be a thing?
Well, we'd also be able to all use decent mics and record locally. So the audio quality would be better.
Now what you're saying is that we also need to get Joe a decent mic, though, right? I mean, these costs are just flying out the flipping window, mate. It's going mad.
Snowballs quickly.
I know. Joe is an expensive man to keep around.
Yeah, what we're saying is that Patreon is essentially the outreach program for the poor.
Exactly.
And by the poor, I mean me.
Exactly. Fund Joe to make a better show. Sort of rhymes.
Yeah.
Boom.
And then once that's achieved, like our stretch goal,
send you to school to learn social media.
Can we do that after the steak bakes?
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you can get the steak bakes on your way to night school to learn the fundamentals of community management.
Oh, I am.
That's it. You know, it needs to get better. You know, Rich the other day was saying that he would be keen to take over community management functions. Are you happy to let him?
If he wants to do that, he'll knock himself out.
Well, there we go. So, Rich, if you're listening to this, which I hope you are, Joe's giving you the thumbs up. Let's get on with it. Let's improve the quality of our output.
Yeah, be a better me, and then I'll have to find something else to do. Like I'll do Why?
Because it was filling up so much of your time at the moment.
I could do car washes. Like they do in America. I could dress like what's her name? Jessica Duda, Jessica from from Dukes of Hazzard.
Right, okay. The Dukes of Hazzard lady, yeah.
Yeah. I could do some car washes.
That's good.
I could do like a fun run. Not very far. I'm not that fit yet. To Greg.
To Greg's fun run to the steak bake.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a great image, Joe? Maybe we could create a kind of, pulley / rig system for you, and then hoist up and retain a steak bake just out of your, range that you can chase around.
And then once we've made the big bucks,
yeah.
Look out, Sir Blimp.
Look out, Sir Blimp. There you go.
Yeah.
Boom.
But unlike The Simpsons, I won't crash it into a football stadium full of people.
That's probably wise, absolutely. Very few things that occur in The Simpsons are a life lesson or things that are worthy to repeat in life. I butchered that bit. Anyway, there you go. So that was episode 25. We really appreciate your time, energy and efforts listening to, engaging with, and being part of this wonderful podcast. Yeah, that's it, really. I can't say much more than that. Like and subscribe where it's relevant to do so. Give us a 5-star review, because that does help the show, I hear. I don't know how, but I think it does. I mean, we haven't had a 5-star review in a while. We got a 1-star review the other day. Did you see that, Phil?
Oh, I didn't. No, what was that?
I mean, the particulars were not very well fleshed out. Just didn't like us, which is fair enough, Sometimes I don't like myself either. That's the
Maybe it was a rival... Maybe it was a rival podcast, just being a bit jealous.
Oh, those rival! It's those people from the Long War, isn't it? They're trying to muck us about.
Who knows?
They know we're coming up.
So, are you telling me this 1-star review happened when I was not in the show as much as I normally am? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think the things are completely unrelated.
It doesn't sound like it.
It might have been they were upset. Because
that's what it was for. It was you not being here that gave us the 1-star review.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're to blame. Now they'll amend their review to 5 stars.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
And they'll say, "Thank God Phil's back. He's the only reason I listen to this."
Or there'll be more, because they thought you've sold out.
Could you imagine if you only listened to this episode, or rather this show for Phil, the amount I speak? I mean, it must be an absolute feast of famine situation. It's ridiculous. I consume all the airtime. All those Phil fans are poorly served. Maybe we need to do the Phil show like we did with the Joe show and see how that works.
Sounds like a good idea.
Sorry, Joe, say that again.
I'm happy with that, and hopefully it'll tank just like mine did, and then I won't feel bad.
Well, there we go. We can only hope. So there we go, everybody. That was episode 25. Like and subscribe where you can. Give us nice reviews. Say nice things. Reach out to us on the various social media platforms. To that lovely Irish fellow that I was talking to in YouTube the other day. We will play sometime when I'm in Dublin. Possibly at some point in the next 12 months. I tend to go there now and again for work reasons, which I won't go into because, personal life, weird stuff. But, I have a job, believe it or not. And sometimes it requires me to be in Dublin, so, yeah, should that occur, maybe I will randomly turn up with an army and we'll play a game. I'll be honest, it's probably not going to happen. But I will pretend as if it will, for the sake of your ongoing support and love. But maybe it will, who knows? You'd never say never. I never thought I'd get along with Joe until, a few days in. And here we are, together, doing this. So maybe, who knows, maybe the nice lad from Ireland who was chatting to us on YouTube could be on this podcast with us before long. Anything's possible.
Were you going to replace me?
Why is it always about being replaced with you, Joe?
Because you can only have one thing in life.
Yeah, but you're not an Irish fella. We need a bit of more, diversity.
I could be Irish. I could be whatever you want me to be, as long as you keep me on here.
Please don't let me go. I've already lost my community management role. Now what will I have?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Anyway, guys, that was episode 25. Like and subscribe, say nice things. I've done this multiple times already. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye. Bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, bye, bye. Bye-bye.